So, former NASCAR driver, and can I call you Jerry Bear? Does anybody call you Jerry Bear?
No, you can call him whatever.
I tried to call Jerry Punch Jerry Bear. He did not like it.
He didn't?
No, he said, no, don't call me that.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
All right.
No, I'm going to call it worse,
All right. Jerry Bear, or known as Jeremy Mayfield. If you could describe your dinner with racers in one word, what would it be?
Cool.
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 And now for Dinner with Racers, presented by
Continental Tire.
with your hosts, Ryan Eversley and Sean Heckman.
Placeholder radio sound. I'm a driver. I'm very angry. This is the sound of a driver on the radio during a race.
What do you think I should order?
Welcome to Dinner with Racers.
Dinner with Racers.
I'm your host, Ryan Eversley.
And I am Sean Heckman.
And you are in for a treat.
Boy, are you. First off, let's just explain what's going on. We are wrapping up our journey across the country. We are literally driving from Charlotte to Atlanta to wrap up a 34-day journey that spanned 13,000 miles across 25 states to bring you 29 free dinners that you can listen to and enjoy.
Please don't write about it in the racer comments.
Now, one of the people we had the true pleasure of meeting was Jeremy Mayfield.
That's right. The Jeremy Mayfield.
Now, if you don't know Jeremy Mayfield's story, he is truly one of the most unique stories in all of motorsport. He came up his own way through the ranks of stock cars, would eventually go on to drive for some of the biggest teams, including Roger Penske, and eventually settled into a factory Dodge NASCAR program run by Ray Evernham.
What's cool about Jeremy is that he actually started out as a mechanic, similar to myself, and was known as a really good fabricator and worked his way from that into the first drive for the first team he worked for.
He's since gone on to win a number of races before starting his own team in 2009 and subsequently was banned indefinitely by NASCAR for failing a drug test. Now, the story does not end there, and if you do your own research, you'll hear a number of different accounts and a number of different sides of this story. But what is unique to us and the way we like to run our show is called Dinner with Racers, not Dateline with Racers.
That's right.
And so our whole thing is that we like to sit down with people and kind of have a conversation with them. And that's what this is. It's a conversation with Jeremy Mayfield where he presents his career through his eyes, and that's what we hear.
We'll say that Jeremy paid us some really nice compliments afterwards and referred to us as one of the favorite interviews he's ever given. And we couldn't have been happier to meet the guy, get to know him a little bit, hear his side of things.
Now, we actually hear a lot of funny stories. We hear about screwing with RV drivers,
reading that you're about to get fired in a newspaper,
and generally his side of the story on all of the things surrounding Jeremy Mayfield and Jeremy Mayfield's career. Genuinely have to thank him for the time, genuinely appreciated all the honesty, and we truly liked hanging out with the guy.
We ate at the Silver Grill in Denver, North Carolina.
And I'd like to point out this was apparently on, according to the national calendar days, Chucky, the Notorious Killer Doll Day.
Okay, that's a day.
Yep.
That needs its own day. I had the Philly cheesesteak, and it was fantastic.
And I had the chicken sandwich.
You did have the chicken sandwich that time. Okay, all right.
And, of course, none of this would be possible without a fantastic Acura MDX that was driven by none other than Dario Franchitti.
I really love this Acura MDX.
Me too, Dario. That's why I got it.
And, of course, thank you to our fantastic sponsors,
Continental Tire.
Continental Tire.
Continental Tire.
Continental Tire.
Continental Tire.
Jeremy Mayfield.
Jerry Bear.
Meow.
All right, we're going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome.
Hey, man, I'm Ryan. Good to meet you.
Hey, Sean. Hey. Nice to meet you, man. Grab a seat.
Not at all.
No.
Right
It's
on
all
time.
good.
Do you know the term driver rankings means?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What's driver rankings?
I don't know.
To you?
I'm not sure. I guess where you're ranked at in your division or whatever,
Okay,
points or whatever.
that's
Kind
what
of.
you would think.
Yeah.
Every NASCAR driver we've talked to, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Tony Stewart, we kind of always say, hey, do you know what driver rankings are? And they're like, no. And it's like
Right.
weird. And your
Yeah.
sport seems to just be fine
Right.
from like the top level to the bottom level. But because this is racing. The other thing is balance and performance.
But it is kind of ranked though, but not really like y'all are ranking it. But it kind of is,
Right. So
then
then
with the series you move up, but
that's a normal thing.
But even that's
how it
going away
works.
now. They're just plopping in whoever they want to put in there
Whoever
now.
can afford it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I even thought about when all this stuff went down with me and NASCAR. I said it'd be funny if I went and got a those in Hollywood they make the mask and all that stuff. And put a darker color on me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
and then show up as just whoever want to wear a hoodie,
Right.
show up as whatever.
Yeah.
And get in the car and just run the wheels off of it. And everybody
Yeah.
like an ARCA somewhere to start
Yeah,
with.
like, who is this guy?
Who's this guy? And I get out and I won't even talk.
Yeah.
I know my voice. I'm like, hey man,
Right.
everything a PR.
He lost his voice years
Hey,
ago.
but a PR man's nightmare, man. Just make it, but run like hell on the racetrack. Just you know what I mean? Is it Tyrone Biggs or something? Be
There
something
you go.
like that.
Oh,
Okay.
All right.
All right, so
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle.
We can hang with you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Making
Oh, yeah.
well, dirt. That's what I like about dirt late models is you run whatever you want to run.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean you run there's I think a weight rule and a spoiler height rule or something, and you can run
that's
any
it.
motor you want to run, whatever you want to
Nice.
run.
That's cool. Are you starting to get the Dr. Bobs who are complaining that it's not fair to run with a guy like you?
Not really, because
No,
Okay.
it's just racing.
All right.
yeah. Well, there's really not a lot of the Dr. Bobs in there. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because as far as what I want to do, there is some, but not as many like it
Yeah.
is when you guys.
Well, it's probably also like you might have a guy that owns a grocery store, but he also knows how to drive a race car.
Right,
You know,
right.
which kind of
Yeah.
how it all started.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have a guy like a Mario Andretti who's working at the tire shop on Monday, but then he's going
Right.
racing that weekend.
Yep.
And he just happens to have a business.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what I
right.
mean?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I think you see more in the oval, in the stock car, especially in the lower ranks.
Right.
Stuff. So people
But-
that race that are also
Right, and the good thing about this type of racing, like the late model stuff, is that I don't know if y'all watch any of the Lucas Oil races or anything like that. I mean they're like sold out everywhere they go,
Right.
all across the United States. And it's not like that in the like the Hickories and all that, the asphalt stuff. So dirt racing really
it's
pretty
there.
much catching on.
Yeah, it's cool.
I just like to do more of it. Find the right people and the right sponsors. And
Right.
Now, I know
I like
you're-
to find a Dr. Bob who don't want to drive.
yeah,
Don't want to put all his money in it. Yeah.
Now, I know you're racing right now. Is that how you're making a living?
Not really. I just been making a living. I'm gonna tell you this is gonna be funny, but I've done this really even before I quit racing.
Yeah.
Or stopped racing as far as the cup stuff goes.
Yeah.
And I always mess with junk cars and just like junk
turn 'em
scrap
around.
business.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
you talking about, Bruce. That's
Yeah.
the guy who was with me earlier.
Right.
That's what he kind of does for me. He kind of
Okay.
does that. But
Okay.
I mean, we'll go out and then buy copper or stuff from the government, from the government liquidation, and then we'll
Yeah.
strip it and sell it. And
My
just,
dad does the same thing.
really?
Yeah.
From the government?
Yeah, from like military surplus
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff.
where I get all of that. Yeah.
Oh no, it's a crazy amount of money there if you do it.
I got a big wire strip machine. Everything. Yeah.
Seriously,
I
my
mean,
dad
it's
does the
crazy.
same thing in his shop. Yeah.
And everybody laughs because they'll come down, especially my old shop. They come out there and it'd be like a pile of insulation. I'm not joking, probably twice as big as this restaurant that we've already. The copper's gone off.
Yeah.
But that's just the insulation part of it.
Exactly right.
But that's exactly where I get it at.
Yeah.
Like we'll buy like 20, 30,000 pounds of it
Right.
from a couple different locations. And then it all ends up there in about 60, 80, 100,000 pounds.
Yeah, my dad literally does the same thing.
And then if I don't have a couple loads coming in or something, which I haven't had lately, just because the copper's been down, this that, and the other. But I'll buy cars, like $500 car, $300 car, and there's a towing company right down in Charlotte that's got a ton of them. I'm just waiting. I got mouse watering on them, but I don't have the space to do it yet. But I'll go ahead and try to buy all of them from them. 100, 200 cars, and then we take it and then pull the aluminum wheels off, throw them in the pile, and the converters in the pile, and radiators, all that stuff. We just throw it off in the pile, and then when we need money, we just sell whatever we need to sell to whatever's up that day.
Exactly.
But I don't really have a business as far as business going on, but I'm going to pretty soon, and I'm gonna do it. I'd like to do that in a bigger way. Turn this thing down.
I got you.
I like to do it in a bigger way where I got I can more of a systems in place. You come in, bring the cars in. As soon as they come in, put a lift on them, strip them, and then stack them over here to the side, sell a few parts off of them, and then basically having a salvage yard.
I got you.
I got you.
So we got to ask the hard-hitting questions here
Yeah.
on our podcast. I'm sure you're sick and tired of being asked this, but I got to ask you.
Yeah.
How tired are you of hearing?
Hey, Jeremy.
Man, I haven't really heard that. I'm not sure. And, that was pretty cool. And that's something I miss a lot, man, was Dodge. As soon as you say that, I think about Dodge, and doing all the commercials for them and all that stuff. But I still get that a lot, you know.
Has Shayna ever put on Octane 93 behind the ears?
No, I tried to get her to one time. She didn't want to do it. Racing fuel, 107 or something.
Right.
It's funny because I get these fans come up and they act like it's the first time they've ever said it. The first
Oh,
time
right.
they've
They
said
think
it,
they're clever.
Like I've never heard that.
Right, exactly.
And they laugh, it's a big deal, but it's funny to hear people doing that.
Are they
Especially still remember
in
that.
2017, they're still doing it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like
I get
assholes
we
on
thought about that.
podcasts.
I probably get it's probably trickled down if I counted by the year, probably 25 a year now, maybe.
Right. That's awesome.
So
I always thought you were a good race car driver, but I liked you in the commercials because you just seem like the guy that you are right now sitting across from you. I
Right.
could tell it probably didn't take a lot of takes to get those commercials done.
No, well, what's funny is the worst thing they can do, like if I do a commercial or anything, or even like a radio advertisement or anything, is put something in front of me what I'm supposed to say.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
how
yeah.
Because I'm not, my vocabulary is not as good as a lot of people's, I guess. You know,
Okay.
the way I say things. So if I'm trying to read what they wrote, you know, like nothing against marketing, but the marketing guy come in, you know, they're whatever.
You can hate on marketing guys.
No, they're like want to say certain things, and I just have trouble pronouncing it.
It's gotta come
like
from
they
you,
want.
right?
So I just throw in my own words and kind of shorten it down a little bit, and then like that "Hey Jeremy" deal, and then I remember just playing today. She would fly in the car, you know, and she's like, "Hey Jeremy," you know, and I was like, "Hey, you know, whatever," and that I forgot what I was supposed to say. But she's supposed to say, "You like it? Do you like it?" You know, and instead of saying, "Oh yeah," I was supposed to say, "Oh yes, I like it," or something, something like that. So I went, "Oh yeah, I like it." Then they used that part.
Yeah, that was way better.
So
it's natural.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not the guys. Oh yes, I like it very much. You know?
We actually, yes, it is lovely.
Yeah, right. Sitting in the race car, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I like it.
We were joking because we think that the commercial side of like, especially bigger sports like NASCAR, they've stopped being creative except maybe during the Super Bowl.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that commercial was always, I thought was pretty funny, but my favorite one was the Tony Stewart with the Nextel, where you're backing the truck up and it's destroying his car. Like, now that wouldn't happen. They wouldn't have two separate sponsored drivers, you know what I mean? And you watch that and you're like, that's funny. And it's not crude. It's not inappropriate. It's just funny, clever. I
tell you what's funny about that. Like you're saying, you watch the races today and you see the drivers out there and you don't even really know who is driving what because there's not a brand and a
they're not
driver
building a
brand
centered program on
and
this guy.
staying together throughout all the seasons. You know, it's like I couldn't tell you now who any sponsors were for. Well, other than Jimmy Johnson, I think he's got Lowe's, but I watched the other day and it wasn't on there, so I'm not sure if he's got Lowe's anymore or not. You know, But
did you know that Jimmy John's sandwiches sponsors Kevin Harvick?
Is it Jimmy Johnson? I think something like that.
Yeah, but not Jimmy Johnson. It bothers the hell out of me.
Yeah. I know it looks like Jimmy Johnson, doesn't it?
It should be.
Jimmy Johnson Foundation on the side of his car.
It should have gone right to them. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it doesn't make sense how you know that's the sport's changed like that. You know, I guess from the point of the sponsor's point of view, where they're spending that kind of money, you know.
Yeah.
But I guess the cost of racing has gone up, where they can't do all the races or something. Now, that doesn't really look good on their part. You know.
No.
It's like, well, we can't afford to do all of them. Let's just do 6 of them. You know, something like that. And and you just can't build that relationship anymore and brand, I guess. You know. But back then it was fun because you could, like the deal with Tony and I, you know, on that deal there. That's all, and that's really just natural. We had one shot to do it in to crush the car, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, come on back. I got it. It was pretty cool. Oh man.
So in your career, you started out as a fabricator, right? Is that one of the first jobs you had?
Yeah, just because that's all. Because I'd been building my own cars.
Right. And you're from Kentucky?
Yeah, Kentucky. Yeah. And I'd built a lot of race cars. You know, I guess what was cool was I got to do a lot of stuff early in my life, early in age. You know, and that's all I wanted to do. That's just what I had a passion to do, and still do today. You know, building and working on cars.
Right.
And when I moved to Nashville, that they were, you know, I heard the Sadler's looking for a fabricator or something down there. So I went to work as a fabricator, but I could build the whole race car.
Sadler Brothers Racing.
Yeah. And I went down there and got the job, and ended up being like a few months later, I was kind of running the shop, and then turned into crew chief in the ARCA cars and all that stuff. And so that was fun. That's definitely the changing or the turning point in my career when I knew I was heading in the right direction then, you know.
Now, were you that asshole that was always like, I want to drive, and like they wouldn't stop talking about it? And it's like, no, that's great, but you got to weld right now.
That's exactly what happened. When I went down there, though, I said, look, I'll come in and work my heart out for you and do whatever I got to do. But if there's ever an opportunity, you know, that I can get in the car I want to drive, right? Well, they said they're going to tell me whatever they want to hear because they want me to come down and go to work. So, sure, come on down here and go to work. So
you got conned in racing.
Right.
Okay.
So I go there and start working in the shop and stuff, and then what happens then is like, well, I'm not racing on the weekends then, so that they've never seen me drive. They don't know who I am. And,
right.
You know, so I thought, man, I'm never going to get a shot because, you know,
it
just ain't going to work out. You know, right.
So.
And then Texaco Premium Diesel sponsored our Cup car one year because the Sadler's owned the trucking company, you know, and they we put them on the car and went to Talladega or somewhere like that. NASCAR made them take it off the car. For some reason, they didn't want a diesel sponsor, I guess, on a car. Okay. I think it was more politics involved than we know about. But
sure.
So they had to take it off the car. Well, Texaco still was our sponsor, so we put it on the Nashville car, which that was perfect because that was my suggestion. Well, hey, let's put it on a late model and I can drive it, you know. And we did that. So they let me run a couple races, and then they started liking it. And then next thing you know, I was a full-time driver for them and took off.
So one of the names that's come up in the past couple of years with our podcast is Michael Kranefuss.
Yep.
So how did that relationship begin?
It was great. You know, I was driving for, actually driving for Kel Yarborough at that time when I went to work for Michael, whatever. But I knew a lot of guys on his team when he started that team, you know. And I'm sitting over driving for Kale, and we were struggling then. Didn't have a lot of money. I think we raced on I think he got $2 million, something like that. He might have got more than that, but that's all we spent on racing. Was a couple million,
which
not
is a lot on a cup level,
right? And that's back when everybody was getting $5, $6, $7 million.
Right.
And so I knew a lot of guys on Michael's team when he started it. Red Dog and Buddy Barnes and Tim Brewer and all those guys were over there. And they was kind of old school guys, but they were they helped me a lot in my career. I talked to them a lot, And so they were struggling with the driver or whatever, and I think Andretti was driving it, and so we decided to, I went and talked to Michael, and he wanted me to come over there and drive for him, and then we swapped cars, and Andretti got into 98, and I jumped into 37, and about the time that Andretti got into the 98 car, we had really worked on our speedway stuff a lot. Tony Fern and all the guys over there, and they just got it figured out, and then we swapped. And I think their first race or something like that, Andretti went to Kale's, and they won the Daytona. Well, it wasn't the 500, but it was like the firecracker or something. I thought, man, but this don't look good on me here, But in the long run, big picture, I knew it would work out. But it was cool that they got to win too, and run good. But Michael really was a huge part of everything for me, really. He's a great guy, funny. We had a great relationship, and what started off, it was Kranefuss Haas, and then
that was not Gene Haas, that was Carl Haas.
Carl Haas, yeah. And he owned the Indy cars for Andretti and stuff, and had Kmart and all that stuff. And so it started off like that, and then something happened there. I'm not sure what it was. And then Michael was still part of the owner, but Penske bought into it and turned into Penske Kranefuss, and then.
And it was originally sort of like a satellite.
Yeah, like Penske satellite.
Well, Well, that's what it should have been. And we were kind of we had our own engine program and chassis shop, and they had their own, and we were just like. Not even half a mile from each other.
That was like the Rusty Wallace days, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it started off where, it started off good. It was good really the whole time. We just had a lot of, I don't know. You probably know this from racing, but if you got a race team that's got 4 or 5 owners in it, you know what I mean, and you got a lot of, and NASCAR, the Cup racing especially, there's a lot of egos, there's a lot of personalities, there's just all kinds of stuff which is the hardest thing to get to pull together.
Right.
And you got that many, there's just a lot of chiefs, you know what I mean, and a bunch of Indians too, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so, we started off like that, and then it didn't take long to figure out that we were running good, and Rusty was running good, and then me and Rusty got, kind of having conflicts on the racetrack, and and just stuff like that. And I was telling somebody the other day, I'll go ahead and tell you this quick story, but Rusty was leading the points, and we go to like the fifth race year, I think it was like Vegas. And this is how stupid we both were. You know what I mean? I look back and I'm like, man, I really want to kick myself in the butt right now for saying, even doing it now. I do it every time I tell this story. But we're, I think I started like 5th, and he was like 2nd or on the pole or something, or we was both like 4th and 5th, somewhere like that. That's about the same. And we just got to where we were trying to outrun each other more than we were the rest of the competition. And one reason because I believed in what we had going on, and he believed what they had going on, chassis and all that stuff. So that they threw the green flag, and we take off running. And about 5 laps in the race, I go underneath Rusty like this, and then caution. We go down in turn 1 and 2. Yeah, it was like a restart.
Okay.
Yeah, or no, it wasn't a restart. We go in turn 1, 2. I get under him like this.
Yeah.
And then we come down the back straight, or coming off 2. They come on the radio and said, "Oh, wreck behind you." Mm-hmm. All right, and this is before you had to stop. You couldn't race to the yellow.
Yeah,
you could race all the way back then.
Yeah.
So they said, "Oh, wreck behind you." So I instead of backing off, I'm underneath Rusty, right, just side by side.
Yeah.
We come off 2 like this, and wreck's in turn 1. We go down the back stretch, and I know they're telling him the same thing. He's not lifting, so I'm like, there's nobody in front of me. I'm not lifting. So we go off into 3. Side by side like this, turn 3, right behind you, back down, right behind you, turn 1,
He's not.
So I'm like, you can race back to the caution, I'm going to get him while I can, So he stays right beside him.
And this is Vegas.
This is Vegas.
So between like start finish and turn 1, there's like 300 yards.
Right. Okay. Right. And there's a wreck down in turn 1.
Finish your story.
And we're getting ready to come off 4 side by side.
Yeah. No one's lifting.
And everybody shut her down. I think the ambulance is already out there. You know what I mean? We come, I guess, on the front stretch, and we're going racing back to the caution.
Right.
Oh, back it down. I wasn't hearing nothing. All I knew was that 2 sitting right there, and I thought, well, if you're going to ride it out, I'm going to ride her out with you. But here we go. So we go past the start finish line, still hadn't lifted. Everybody's like, the whole fans, everybody like, what? Yeah. And so all of a sudden we go past start finish line, like you said, not far, go into turn 1 like this. We're in turn 1, the wreck is right in the middle of turn 1. I get whatever they wrecked it, I get loose like this, boom, and hit Rusty. Like that. We went like this, both cars turned around backwards, went straight to the wall, right in the middle of 1 and 2.
Right.
And the wreck's been there for a while, really. it worked. I swear, it back to me and just like this side by side.
Right.
I remember sitting there like this, and it got quiet, man. I didn't hear nothing on the radio.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm thinking, holy shit. He was leading the points when we got there.
Oh,
You know,
God.
I'm like 5th in the points. You know, I'm like,
Right.
I'll never forget it. You hear pit drop, just cheat.
Not even like, you all right? Just like
Nothing,
Yeah,
man.
just like-
And I just like put my window net down and thought, man, it's gonna be a long ride back right here, you know.
Yeah.
And man, our teams about got in a fight on pit road, and
Right.
we had to fight. I had my own plane, so we you know, me and I've got this crew chief and just a couple of us flew in mine, you know.
Yeah.
But the rest of the guys had to fly back with the team, you know, and it was just bad. It was only like, I think, 15, 20 laps in the race. The race just started, you know.
Yeah.
And man, I'll never forget that. But just things like that just created all kind of turmoil. You know?
Yeah.
Not sure why, but they did.
Yeah. I don't get it. Yeah.
If I tell my wife all the time, I said, if I had a coach or somebody that just said, I didn't have nobody tell me nothing wrong. I thought, hell, I did everything I'm doing is right. You know, I went from nothing to here I am. You know, I don't do no wrong, you know, and nobody's gonna tell you you're doing anything wrong, you know.
Yeah.
But if I had somebody that would just set me down and say, look, like Kranefuss, he did it a lot, but I didn't listen to him, you know.
Yeah.
But he did it. I'll tell you about his way of doing things. But you know, if I had somebody just pull the reins back a little bit and just say, look, just calm down a little bit, you know, we'd won a bunch of races, you know.
Right.
So, but as far as Kranefuss goes, you know, he things like that would happen, you know, or something happened in the shop, or we wouldn't be running good. He was real hot-headed, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know him, but he's very hot-headed, and he doesn't understand. Well, he understands everything, but sometimes the way he says things and interprets things a little different than the way we would, you know. So you can imagine. I'm in there talking to him, you know, like he chew your ass out, man. Like he would just
pissed,
when he knew when you got called to the office, it was going to be an ass chewing, you know.
Yeah.
And you just learn how to take it, you know.
Right.
And so he'd call me up in the office, and he did this a few times, you know. And I always knew I was in trouble. If you walk in and he was just happy and smiling, you knew he was in trouble.
Okay.
And if you walk in and he was just sitting there kind of mad looking, you thought, well, I might be all right in here. You know, for some reason, it's just weird he had to read him. But if he was sitting there in his chair and he had his feet up on his desk, and he'd be like his filing his fingernails, that's when it was the worst time ever.
Okay.
He'd be sitting there filing his fingernails like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and he had this look on his face, and he just, you know, real like, you know, German, how the German mentality is. And I remember sitting down a couple times, and I forgot what it was over or something, but he'd call me a redneck hillbilly. He's like, you fucking redneck hillbilly, you dumb. You know, that's what he chewed right. You know, it wasn't just. It was just straight to the point. You dumb bum. You know, just like that. And we sit down like that, and he was like, I remember a couple times he started that, and he filed his fingernails, and you know, and he's trying to start stuff with me and my crew chief. He'd say, well, Paul said you didn't like the new cars we were riding. I said, I never told Paul that. You know.
Yeah.
You didn't? No. He calls them secretary in there. He say, hey. Tell Andrews to come up here, you know. So he comes off. Now he's got both of us there.
Yeah, sitting there.
Yeah, he done told Paul. I told him a bunch of shit. He's done told me that. Paul's told me a bunch of shit just to get us into it, you know.
Yeah.
And
So he's a crazy person.
oh, he gets wild, man. I tell you, he's like, he slams stuff down. I mean, just, and one day I remember, but the good thing about Michael though, he could say, you da 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 da, and he'd be on you, and you could just say right back to him.
Oh, okay.
He loved it. If you sit there and took it,
Yeah.
if you just sit there and kind of da da da, you won't be there long.
Right, but if you gave it back, he respected it.
I'm talking about give it back to him like, hey, fuck you and everything. Walk out. I've done that a bunch. I was like, fuck you, Michael. I get it, walk out, slam the door, knock pictures off his wall, and he loved it. You know, it's just like the harder you were in him, the harder he's been.
Right.
He was great, you know.
He wanted you fired up.
Was he a drinking guy?
A little bit, but he didn't drink much. He like at night and stuff. He drank wine and stuff like that.
I was wondering if he had if he would be the guy with like the whiskey you see in like all the movies in their office. It's like 2 in the afternoon.
Nancy, give me my bourbon.
Yeah, no, he wasn't like that too much. Not that I know. Hell, he might have. Maybe that's what's wrong with him. I wasn't sure.
Maybe he should have been drinking.
Maybe that's what it was. But I'll tell you a great story. He had this black guy, was this great dude. His name's Scotty, and he drove his motorhome for him. Scotty did, you know. And you'd hear this all the time, Scotty. You know, we parked right next to each other. He'd be over chewing Scotty's ass about because there wasn't no toilet paper on the thing or some kind of stuff. Scotty, and then Emmy, which is Michael's wife, she'd come to the races, and she'd call him like Scotty. You know, she had this more Scotty, and that's all you heard was Scotty.
Right.
Just we leave our windows open, just bullshitting with them, you know. Well, we all went out one night. We had this thing in Hollywood or something. We was in California, and Scotty, needless to say, got a little messed up and didn't get in the real late.
Okay.
Like that morning.
Yep.
Like about daylight.
Okay.
Good
man.
Yeah, good night.
So I get up that morning, you know, we had practice early, and I'm sitting there drinking coffee or something. I look out my window and I see Scotty out there at the end. He's funny. He jumped around every time Michael would say Scotty, he jumped, you know.
Right.
He's out there just pacing. I could tell I know he just got in, you know, and he looked bad, man. I guess I opened the window up, and Michael's motorhome was pulled in and mine was backed in. So we're sitting there like this, but we're right between each other. And I rolled the window down. I said, Scotty. I said, Scotty. I guess he looked around. He's looking. He's like, man, he can't. He's sure if Michael's hauling for him or Emmy, or he ain't sure what. It might still be drunk. He might just be here. So he paced around. He's looking. I said, Scotty again like that, and he looked again.
He's like, where's this coming from?
Yeah, and he was looking around like this, and then I guess I said, Scotty, because Michael would say this a lot. He said, I said, Scotty, get your goddamn ass in here now. He goes like this. He takes off running down there. He's running now. He's hurt now. He's like, oh shit, they're on. Right. Opens the door up. It just walks in without knocking or anything.
Oh no, yeah, they're not ready.
And Germans don't care if they walk around naked all the time, right? So he goes in the motorhome. He's in the mad panic now, like, oh shit,
I'm in trouble.
Goes up the steps like this. You could hear him. Right. All of a sudden, Emmy's up in there butt naked.
Oh no!
Yes. So he goes up steps. He like this, and Emmy's like, ah! Scotty's like, ah!
You're in your motorhome freaking out.
He runs back out of the motorhome. He goes back to the back of the bus. He's going, like he's
no idea.
He's thinking, man, I'm messed up. He don't know what's going on. So about 3 minutes later, I said, Scotty, because he didn't
relent.
Because getting him fired wasn't enough.
No, he didn't get a chance to figure out if they really want him or not. They just know they both went, wah! And he took off back out the door. So I started doing that again. Scotty, get in here.
Right. He's like,
hey, he beats on my door like this, and he opens up and asked my coach.
Scotty.
He said, Scotty. Yeah. He said, he's like, I mean, out of breath. He's panicking. Because they made him jumpy like it anyway. He said, did y'all hear Michael home for me? I said, my coach driver said, he knew what I was going. He said, hey, was Michael home for Scott? I said, yeah, I heard him a few minutes ago. I'm not sure now.
Right, I don't know. Yeah.
So he shuts the door and he goes back out and he's like, man, something's wrong here. I said, Scotty, get in here now. And here he goes, look back at the car. But we had a great time with him, man. Always something,
Right.
What happened to that guy now?
Kranefuss?
Scotty.
I'm not sure. Oh,
Scotty's dead.
Yeah, Scotty's dead.
Somebody killed him for running in on him.
And you and Rusty were like, did you guys just not get along?
Well, what's crazy, we got along pretty good. We still get along good, Okay. Just, but when we got on the racetrack, we didn't.
Yeah.
We, I don't know. I guess I'd say we got along, but we didn't really get on to start, they're like in the middle part of it. We got along, but we mother each other to death. You know what I mean?
Okay,
Like I'd go to my team and fuck them, and he'd be over telling Mayfield, then we see each other in the meeting. We had team meetings. They're like, hey man, what's going on?
How are you? Right.
And I'd go out on Monday night or Tuesday night, and we'd sneak over on our boat. And I'd go steal all his beer off his dock stuff.
As you do, goddamn right. So
Sean and I do the same thing.
But it wasn't bad, We just looking back again. If I could live my life looking back all the time and fixing things before it happened,
right?
It'd been a great relationship,
Yeah.
But he'd probably tell you the same,
Yeah.
And we were both good at what we did, and the teams were good at what they did. It's hard to put all that together,
Oh yeah,
It really is.
Yeah. Well, especially with such a long season, and you have a good run. And
and team members and personalities, and everybody hates to lose, so somebody's got to lose,
Yeah. You mentioned no one was keeping you in check. I apologize. I really don't know much about your upbringing. Like, were your parents around to yell at you and keep you in line, or did you have anybody on the family side that's like, "Hey, dude, knock the fuck off"?
Yeah, well, I wasn't. I was really bad. Doing anything really bad. Just, in racing, like in general, like on the radios. Like just calm down a little bit. Just little things.
You didn't have
all
that
that little stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't really have the guy that really. I don't know if that I would listen to. If I would listen to anybody.
Is that you or was that them?
That was just probably both.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was me wanting to win. Wanting to win races and not really listening to, or taking advantage of the people I had around me that could have helped me.
Somebody saying it's lap 30, Rusty can beat you to the caution. It's fine.
Right. Exactly. See, like that point right there, and I had a bunch of those happen. But I look back and he could have backed off too. So it's really he could see what
you are a
There was
driver.
2 people in the crash.
Right. I got to where early in my career I just and the chassis stuff. And that's something else Rusty did too. He did all his own stuff, and I did all my own stuff.
Right.
So if I wanted a bigger right front spring or left front or whatever I wanted, I got what I wanted. And but that was for because when I started cup racing, it was like this. When I started with Kel, all right, when you're a new guy coming into the deal and you're sitting in the car and this team's been together for a while, all right, they're going to show you that we hired you to just drive the car.
Right.
Okay, well, I don't mind that. I didn't mind it. But when I'm sitting there driving the car and we're out there in practice and they say, go out and run 6 or 8 laps. And I go out and it's so loose you can't drive it for whatever reason. it's I can't drive it 6 or 8 laps. You know, so you want to come in and tighten it up. I know that in 6 laps it won't be a bit better than it is right now. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So then you come in and they go, okay, lower the track bar a 1/4 inch on the right side only. I'm thinking, really?
Guys,
I know how much this is on a scale of 1 to 10. This is like a 10 right now.
Right.
And you're want me to go back out and spend the time to go back out and run 6 more laps with a 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch lower track bar.
Yeah.
It's more than that, you know. So that's the way it would all develop, you know. Then you learn yourself, like, I can't sit here and let these guys dictate my career.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I started pushing back on it, you know, and then.
But that also takes the confidence to have that.
Yeah, it does. It does. But when that goes on and on and on, it happens several, you know, just every single day. This is before you really get to where you can start calling your own shots.
Yeah.
But so I learned early on, I'd rather be the one, if I'm going to get the blame for it,
it better be your call.
The driver's going to get the blame for everything. Sunday morning, you finish 35th, what happened?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then if you tell them what happened, well, I think this, and this, well, your crew chief and your tire guy and your engineer and all that are all sitting across from you. Basically, you're motherfucking them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the next thing you got is the crew chief's mad at you, you know, the engineer's mad at him, and it turns into big turmoil, you know.
Right.
I thought, well, guys, just let me. If we run bad, I'm gonna get blamed for it anyway. Just let me at least have what I want.
Yeah, make your own bad decisions. Yeah.
So
it probably turns into a situation of like we all have to understand where we're at,
right?
You know, instead of pointing fingers. But
but they don't
egos,
do that.
Yeah, exactly.
What happens is they're all making good money.
Yeah,
drivers making good money. Then they go, okay, they buy a house on the lake. You know, I've seen this happen so many times. Mm-hmm. And they were a great crew chief or a great driver until they bought the house on the lake. Now it turns into where, now if I don't have my job,
right,
what am I going to do? Lose my house and everything? And then the wife's on his ass, whoever's that, you know. What I mean? It turned into, and I never let that happen to me, you know.
Dude, Sean and I have this conversation more so about like we see it a lot with marketing guys on his side, where people don't want to take a risk and put themselves out there because you might get fired.
Right.
So what we refer to it in all forms is like middle management.
Right.
Like that middle management mentality of like, if I just do this, I can I'll stay hired.
Yep.
Literally, our podcast faces this with every big name, everybody.
Yeah.
Really?
Because we're like fun guys that are just goofing off.
Right.
And so because of that, people are terrified of like, you know, a guy gets comfortable or whatever. And so like, we usually try to avoid going through and it's funny because I am a PR guy, but we try to avoid going through PR people. So
that's where I got in my career. I got where I was like, screw it, I'm not going to play the game. I'm just going to be who I am.
Yeah.
Right.
And that probably hurt me. That's probably why I don't have a job right now. But
now it'd be like,
but
at the time, that's when like, in my opinion of it is like at that point, NASCAR was like they were trying so hard to be like sponsor friendly, PR, like buttoned up, no more entertainment. Exactly. Whereas, you know, beforehand, like that would have made you like the Dale Earnhardt.
Right.
You know, he said what was on his mind. He didn't take any shit. Everybody loved him for it.
Yep.
And then your period of time, it was like if you say anything wrong, it's action detrimental to stock car racing. It's a big fine and everything. And then now they desperately need people with a personality and attitude.
The personalities right now are terrible.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But you know who created that? Brian France created all that.
Okay.
He's the one. We had these young, marketable drivers in there. Well, how's it working for you?
Yeah.
Because the stands they're not showing up in stands. They're not showing up on TV. So how's that young, marketable driver working out, you know?
Robbie Gordon was telling us last night that he got fined like $25,000 for throwing a helmet at Michael Waltrip.
Yeah.
And he's like, now I bet you they'd pay me $25,000 to show up and throw a helmet at somebody to get something going. And I'm like, I'd watch that.
But they would, but then they wouldn't because they're defeating their own purpose again. You know what I mean? We like the helmet throw, but we got to find him for something, you know? And
right.
It's just unbelievable. Robbie was one of them guys, too, that was like that. It's kind of did his own deal and the way he wanted to do it. He got screwed so many times. I watched it over and over, and I was like, speeding on pit road, just everything you think of, that they could screw him what they did, you know? All because of about 1 or 2 people. You know what I mean? When you piss off the one at the top, they'll blackball you just like that. And he got blackballed just like I did, you know?
Do you back in the Penske Evernham days, do you have a favorite fine or a favorite penalty you got? Like one that you look at and like, I'm proud of that one.
Yeah. Robbie Gordon's was the helmet at Waltrip.
Yeah. Mine was I was a part of it, the fine. I'm not sure if I was part of the deal or not, but we had the largest fine that ever had been given to NASCAR at that point in time.
Nice.
And that was we was running Talladega. We sat on the pole at Talladega.
When was this?
In 2000, maybe 2008.
Okay. So it's with Penske.
Yeah, and they check your fuel when you go in, when you come out. You know, after qualifying, we sat on the pole. We didn't have nothing wrong with our fuel. Everything was great. The motor was fine. Everything's good. And then after the race, they because we started on the pole, we really didn't run that good. But after the race, they come over to our trailer after we had everything loaded up. Made us pull our car back off the trailer, and took the fuel cell out of it. Took our carburetor off of it, fuel cans out of the truck. It took all of anything had anything to do with fuel. They took it off. said, what's wrong? Well, we're going to check it, send it back to the lab and check it. We think you had illegal fuel. You know, it's like, I was already home actually when it happened, and because they tore a car down after tech, you know, for being on the pole. And but they call, this is another Michael Kranefuss story. They called Michael and they said, Michael, we confiscated your car and stuff. We're going to take it back to the thing, all your fuel stuff, you know. Really? What for? That's the weekend he didn't go. He ate at Talladega. And Mike Hilton said, well, we think you might have had illegal fuel in the car. And Kranefuss says, really? Was it the stuff they tested at Charlotte? Stuff they tested at Charlotte. Now, what do you think? What's going to happen after that? Right. You know what I mean? You don't mess with fuel in NASCAR whatsoever.
No.
Yeah.
But maybe we did test some. We weren't racing any, right?
Right.
But you don't sit there and own it. Really? Was it the stuff they tested at Charlotte?
Right.
So that triggered a high investigation of a lot of things, you know. so they ended up finding us like $150,000 for the
Jesus.
Yeah, for that.
Yeah.
They never found anything illegal.
Wait, so what was the fine for then? Just for Michael mouthing off?
No, because they said we wanted to see results.
Right.
Well, they just do things the way they want to do it. That's what they did. They fined us $150,000, took like 150 points.
But I'm so confused for what? They claim that you had illegal fuel?
Yeah, claimed we had illegal fuel, but they never found any. Somebody told them we had illegal fuel in it, and then they got on the subject of we tested it. So if we're testing it, it could have been in there. You know, they do what they want to do. You know.
So if you don't mind me asking, how did it go south with the Penske side?
That right there was one of them.
Yeah.
One of the things, but it he and Michael started arguing.
Penske and Kranefuss.
Yeah. About our chassis, their chassis.
Because it's not like teams today where it's like 5 cars out of one shop. You and Rusty's car were two separate deals.
Two separate deals.
2 separate shops, 2 buildings, 2 everything.
Yep. So this time there's a lot of turmoil within the team.
Right.
And we didn't like them, they didn't like us.
Yeah.
So then, you know, Michael was our guy that kind of took it on. You know, he's one stood up for what we believed in. Well, then Penske bought him out.
Okay.
Then become Penske Racing.
Right.
And then become Penske Racing, you know, that's a year later they wanted to move everything over to Rusty's deal.
Yeah, right. Put it all in one house.
I did what I thought was right at the time. I still feel like it was at the same time. I stood up for our team, and basically what was going to happen, they were going to shut our team down and just take a few guys from the fab shop over there
and pilfer out.
And then the rest of my guys that on my team that were good were going to be gone. You know what I mean? I thought. So I raised the hell and just fought for it.
So you still would have had a job because it still would have been a 2-car team, but you would have lost a lot of your guys.
About all my guys.
So you were standing up for your guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hoping that Penske would let us just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, sure,
you know?
sure.
And so I created enough turmoil and stuff, and then when I was doing that, I got the offer to drive for Ray.
Right.
So I thought, well, you know, I'm either going to drive for Ray or they're going to stay right here. And so they decided they were going to do something different. And they got rumored I was going to drive for Ray, and then I'd let me go, you know, to go drive for Ray.
And I assume that obviously the rumor was true, but like was the deal done and it just sort of got back to them?
Wasn't done.
Okay.
You know, but it wasn't long after that it was done.
Yeah, copy. Was there ever a deal with any teams that we never heard about? Like did Richard Childress ever come to you or Hendrick or anybody like that?
Yep. When I left Penske's, I had the opportunity. Well, Jeff Gordon called me back going to the 48.
Oh,
at the time.
In 01? Oh wow. Okay. So basically, you're out of Penske. You're this close with Evernham. So you've got, but there's a couple weeks there. We've got the gap.
Right, and I'd already kind of committed to Evernham, and you know ended up doing that. So
yeah, but that 48 program wouldn't go anywhere.
No, no, I knew it wasn't going to be a good team. I could tell, you know. But yeah, I had a lot of stuff like that happen, you know. With Childress, I could drove for him a couple times, you know.
Yeah.
And looking back, you go, man, maybe I should have done this and done that, but.
Yeah.
We don't need to know numbers, but just compared to like sports car guys now, what kind of salaries were you guys getting? I mean, a guy like you who's not a Cup champion, but you're considered one of the good ones.
He's driving for Dodge.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I assume
teams.
When I drove for Ray, it was like I got a base salary, and then you know just for the salary. But what I always liked, and I learned this from Penske, was you put in your contract, say they got you the X amount on your salary, whatever number is, and throw in, well, if I win, my salary goes up, you know, wherever you want to graduate up, or
prize money or bonuses.
Or bonuses, you know, or you just have like top 5 bonuses.
Okay.
Like if you win, say $50,000 to win over and above everything else, 50, like 25, 20, 10, 15, whatever, you know, however you want to do it. So I did that in a lot of my contracts, and did, you know, made really good money like that, you know. But like my base salary at Evernham's was like, I think it was 1.5 when I started.
Yeah.
And it was like 2.5 when I ended.
Wow. Okay.
just my base, and then now how all my bonus stuff in there.
Right.
Plus 50% of the purse.
Plus purse, plus endorsements.
Yeah.
So you do pretty good. A lot of people do them different. A lot of people just want, I want $5 million or whatever it is, but mine was just kind of like performance.
You want to stagger it for results.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to go. Now, do you have a management team at this point?
Yeah, I had probably should have been better too, but I had a guy that worked for me that did all the stuff, so I didn't have to deal with
the same guy?
No.
The guy with the beard? Okay.
He probably could have done a good job.
Okay, so what was your family's business back in Kentucky?
My mom runs her and my stepdad own a couple of True Value hardware stores. And she runs one, he runs the other one.
Okay. So is that what they did when you were a kid starting out?
No, really. Well, pretty much. So I left pretty early. I left when I was 18 years old.
Okay. So
if you don't mind me asking, where's your dad?
My dad's dead.
Okay.
Now, but that was my stepdad, who I kind of grew up around, all that stuff.
Right. Was your? I apologize if it's sensitive to tell me, but like your biological dad, was he in the picture?
Yeah, he come out here with me when I moved from Nashville to out here in North Carolina.
Okay.
He kind of moved with me.
Okay.
We were more like brothers, pretty much.
What did he do? That's
cool. He did paint and body work on the cars. He worked for Penske when I worked over there and all that stuff. So.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
And then I just had him working for me. Just doing that and kind of what Bruce is doing now out there.
So growing up, it was more like your mom and your stepdad that were kind of doing the racing.
Yeah. Pretty much. But we didn't have any money to race off of. We just had enough to get me to point A, point B.
Yeah.
So I've read that you listed Talladega Nights and Days of Thunder as your favorite racing movies.
As you should.
How familiar are you with the movie 3 from ESPN Films?
Man, that stuff like that. We you know how that is. That's political. If you read that, I probably didn't say that.
Really? All right.
No,
cool.
we do it for
some asshole like me just making these look interesting.
Right.
Yeah,
I read it on Reddit actually.
Yeah, I know.
Your Q&A on that.
Yeah, that was and that wasn't really me either. That was me.
No shit. I was like, dude, I was gonna sing your praises on that.
It was. But I was sitting there. I wasn't doing the typing.
Yeah, for sure.
But some of that stuff we just do because it's funny, whatever. But
right.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty good.
Okay. So in that film,
have you seen the movie 3 though on ESPN?
Okay. Well, there's a very, very powerful scene several times in the film where Ralph Earnhardt tells Dale, "You better watch out, or you're gonna be stuck working in this mill for the rest of your life." And then Dale himself would say to his son or his wife or whatever, "I ain't going back to that mill."
Right.
So have you ever said, "Yes, please, regular Coke, thank you"? Have you ever said, "I ain't going back to that paint shop"?
Oh yeah.
I ain't going back to that True Value.
A bunch. Yeah. I didn't have to work in True Value, but I did. Mine was Owensboro. I'm not going back.
I ain't going back to Owensboro.
I'm not going back.
That's your mill
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you do a $1 million contract with Penske. You didn't grow up with means. What's the first thing you buy?
I don't remember.
Interesting.
What's the dumbest thing you bought?
Airplane.
You had a jet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of plane was it?
I had a Lear 24 or Lear 25.
Okay.
And,
that's no joke.
But it, back then the Lear 25, it's got like the big motors on it and all that stuff. They're the fastest thing you can get,
Right.
And Rusty had a 31, Lear 31.
Yeah.
A little, newer, but more quieter, but wasn't near as fast. You know what I mean? So I had the fastest plane, And that's funny because when I started at Evernham's, Ray flew in this Citation,
Yeah.
And they're slow as hell. They're like $230, something like that.
Right.
He'd leave California, and he used to get so pissed because I'd like destroy him coming home. I'd say, "When you leave, Ray, we're heading to the airport now." So he'd take off, and I'd go back, motor home. I'd take a shower and all this stuff. And we showed up at the airport like an hour later than he after the race.
Right.
Show up, and he'd been gone for an hour. I'd get in the plane. We didn't have to wait line or nothing. Just take off.
Yeah.
We'd be about 45 minutes in the flight. My pilot said, "Well, we just passed Ray." And we'd beat him like about 2 hours to get to the shop.
Right.
And I'd get there, and our planes were the same hangar.
Mm-hmm.
And we would, I'd say, "Hurry!" They hurry up, put it in there real quick, back it in, shut the doors, like we'd been there forever.
It's been ages,
He'd get there, we'd already lock the doors up. It was like everything we did,
Right.
Was that the game in the whole paddock? Like who can have the coolest jet and who can?
Oh yeah. It's everything. You just gotta, especially getting home, because you can be home anywhere we went, we were home in an hour and a half. After the race.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Did anybody have a sense that maybe this was sort of the peak time?
Yeah. Dale Earnhardt told me, said, I don't know if y'all have heard this before or anybody else, but I know he told me personally, because we lived kind of close to each other at the time.
Okay.
And he come to, we was talking one day, and he said, I thought he'd just give me advice like everybody does. He said, we sitting there by ourselves. He said, "Well, you better start saving your money." That's the way he talked to you,
Yeah.
I said, okay, you know, save my money. Let's see, I've heard that before.
You know? Kid, yeah.
He said, no, I'm telling you. He said, you better start putting everything you can back. I said, okay, you know, because we were talking about land or something. You know, I had some land, he had some. And he kept saying it again. I said, real, what's going on? What are you saying? He said it won't be long. And this is exact words he said. He said, Brian France is going to take over the sport. He said, when he does, we're all done. Just like that, we're all done. Boom. I was like, man, we must know something I don't know, you know, or I ain't heard that, you know, but he was friends with his dad.
Yeah,
you know?
okay.
And nobody thought that he would put Brian in charge of the whole
show,
thing.
yeah.
You know, nobody ever dreamed he would do that, but Earnhardt said that. He said, I'm telling you, when that happens, he said, it's over done. And at that time, you're thinking, ain't no way, this is solid,
like
it ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
You know? And now look at it.
Yeah.
And there's one man responsible for all of it, going straight down. You know what I mean? But
so things with Evernham started well, right?
Not really.
Okay. Oh.
It looked like that. I mean, it wasn't bad. We just 6 months into the first half of the season, my first year.
Yeah.
I was either going to quit or he's going to fire me.
Really?
That's how bad it was. But then
it was like the full Dodge, everything.
Yeah, I love Dodge, man. Dodge was the best probably sponsor I ever had.
Right.
Okay.
They had Mobile One. They were good.
Yeah.
But with Evernham, it was just I don't know if y'all when you Ray's a good guy. I mean, he's nothing wrong with Ray. He's just Ray, normal guy. But let's see, how should I say this? He won a lot of stuff, and he had a lot of stuff go good for him, you know, and you know how that goes with egos and everything else.
Well, for anybody young, I mean, I assume anybody listening to this knows they're NASCAR, but Ray Evernham was the guy in the 90s. He was Jeff Gordon's crew chief, won everything there was to win.
Right.
Dodge gave him a ton of money and said, let's create this what would be factory deal in sports car terms, but let's do a Dodge NASCAR program.
Yep.
Go out, find the best guys. You were one of them, and Bill was the other.
And Bill was just, if you hire Bill Elliott, you gotta, you just kind of do what you just listen to Bill. You respect Bill, everybody thinks.
Yeah.
All right, and then you hire me, and I'm more like, okay, I didn't win a championship, so I'm not ranked up there. We're talking about rankings, right where Bill's at yet, but
you were silver.
But I would, do whatever I had to do to run good, whatever it took, and so it just started off where I think Ray thought he could just plug a driver in, and the driver would make all the difference in the world.
Okay.
Well, Bill's struggling, and they took Casey Atwood out, and I jumped in. Well, we didn't change nothing but the driver.
Yeah.
And the results are 99% of the time ain't gonna be much different.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about.
Yeah.
But if you hired me to drive your car, let me get what I need in the car.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what me and Ray fought about.
Okay.
And so
you're saying if you plug in the driver, but the driver doesn't get to go his direction.
Well, if you get lucky and you fall in right to where their stuff just happens to meet the way you drive.
Yeah. Well,
okay, boom, you run good.
Yeah.
If you got somebody that does that, but if you're already struggling, your whole program's struggling. Dodge, motors, we struggle in everything to start with.
Yeah.
The motors weren't up to speed at all, Mm-hmm. So we get in there, and now I got a lot of knowledge I'm bringing to the table with, the stuff I felt with Penske and we had it going on over there for a while.
Right.
And I thought that's why you'd hire me, is you want to get not only me driving, but you get a lot of information with it. You know?
Right.
And it just was just stuck right here in one spot for a while, and there again, I'm not going to be stuck long. I'll either make something's going to happen. We're going to either do something different or change somebody or something.
Yeah, right.
And so Ray got mad and basically said, just give him whatever he wants. I'm done with him at the end of the year anyway. First year. All right, this is 6 months into it.
That's a nice thing to think about.
Comforting feeling.
So now I'm like, okay, well, cool. The good thing about it, he let us go do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And by the end of that year, we were already almost winning races. You know what I mean? And he left us alone. And then we got into an argument in Watkins Glen, because when we started running good, when he tells you he's going to leave you alone, he goes over to the 9 pits. Now he's over there for the remainder.
Yeah, right.
You however many races you are, and then when they get pissed off at him, he'd go back over to 19.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so we had him back and forth a lot. You know?
Yeah.
And because over Mike Ford would piss him off. Mike was Bill's crew chief.
Yeah.
And so they'd piss him off, send him over here, and we sent him back and forth. But anyway, he left us alone for a few months, and we started running better and good, and then he started seeing, okay, cool, I'm seeing results, kind of let's do what we want to do, and we swapped some people around and moved some stuff around. Got the cars looking cool and good, and all of a sudden we started, just momentum started rolling,
Yeah.
And now the 9's with us, and we're all just rolling, and everything took off. And then he allowed me to work for him a few more years.
You had the privilege.
Yeah, it was my privilege.
Yeah.
But so then we just started running good. Both teams were running good, and Ray and I got in this huge argument that year at Watkins Glen, and after that we were like friends, good friends. I mean, I really respect him, and I think he respected me after that. And then. Everything was going great, and we had our ups and downs, but we ended up the next year getting in the top 10 points, and
you made the chase.
Year after that, we got top 10 points, and then then here comes the old Ray back out, and he the second time we made the top 10, I really felt like the third year, like the fourth year, actually, we could win the championship. You know, two top 10s, and for the chase and all that stuff.
Right.
And at the end of that year, he starts the new year off saying, okay, I'm gonna give all your guys and your team and your cars to Casey, because Casey wasn't doing that good.
Right.
And see, the 9 car was the
house car.
And the 19 cars helped the 9 car win a championship.
Right.
And I knew that all along, but we still outrun him.
Yeah.
You know, that was 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. So he takes all my cars and all my guys, and I'm thinking, this is crazy, but he did Bill that way a year before and put Bill in the 91 car.
And just to explain the timeline, Bill was sort of the big veteran, and then they got rid of him, and Casey Kane was this new. He was going to win everything.
Well, right, but they put Bill. They put Bill in what they call their our test team, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Didn't really get rid of him, but just Bill didn't want to run as many races and put him off to the side of 91. But they didn't run. They never run worth a the 91 did.
Yeah.
And we're all sitting there with 9, 19, and the 91 ran like dog's ass. Bill Elliott was embarrassed. I'm telling you, that's how bad it was.
Right.
Yeah. Well, then they said, okay, we're going to take all your cars, because our stuff was solid and built. We're going to give it to Casey. And we're going to put you another team together, help build that back up, whatever, So I'm like, okay, I'm pissed off about it. I'm like, if that's what you want to do, fine,
Right.
But leave me alone and we'll get it where it needs to be.
Yeah, do it again.
Well, I didn't know I was getting the 91 team.
You know
what I mean?
Which you'd seen not do so well.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't even, in-house didn't even like them, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like we were like, didn't help them, they didn't help us, and we just left it off to the side, And so now that's the guys I got. And then we started a new year out starting with their cars, trying to get their cars like the 9 and 19 was. And you think it'd be easy job right there in the shop, you know what I mean? Shouldn't be too hard. Build it exactly like that one, and they couldn't do it. And I got pissed off and frustrated, and we were like 34th in points. And and I kept going to Ray throughout the whole time. And man, what are we gonna do? And he said, look, just do what you're doing, just relax, everything's cool, And I told you, I'm not gonna sit there long and run like that, you know what I mean? And something's gonna happen, And so meanwhile, there's a lot of stuff that was going on too while I was running bad that I had nothing to do with. that Ray did have some stuff to do with, And the media caught me one day, and one morning before we got there on Friday morning for practice, and they knew that they could like stir me up a little bit and get me, and I might say whatever they want to hear, And they did, and they started saying, well, why are you running so bad? You're running like basically, making me feel like I'm an idiot, you know what I mean? I'm like, so I was holding it in, biting my tongue.
Don't do it.
I know, and they're like, well, where's Ray at? What's he saying about all this? I said, where's Ray? I said, I don't know, I ain't seen him. I'm going to tell you the truth, No, I haven't seen Ray. What do you mean you haven't seen him? You haven't talked to him in the shop? I talked to him, a couple times in the last 6 months. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
it's like shots fired.
They're looking at him like, wow, I'm like, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
What'd he say? I said, he told me just keep doing what we're doing, it'll all work out, And so they said, so Ray didn't run here this weekend? I said, I don't think so. And I knew where he was at,
Yeah.
And I said, he's not here, huh? I said, I don't go ask the 9 bucks, they'll tell you, Well, I knew he was at ARCA race with our developmental driver.
Yeah.
And with my motor and my cars, what I mean? She was running,
Yeah.
And I'm running basically ARCA stuff.
And that's Aaron Evernham now, but at the time Aaron Crocker.
Yeah, that was the girl that he told everybody that there was nothing going on. He wasn't going to get, there was nothing. She's just a developmental driver.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
This is early on, but way before anybody knew about what was going on. But we knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So.
And now they're married.
Yeah, but
a child.
Yeah. Well, and so just to set that story
up. I
was
I?
Yeah. So Evernham and Dodge invested in this development program, and there was a young driver, Aaron Crocker, a female.
Yeah, and she's going to be our test driver, and we're all thinking, what are you going to do? How are you going to help us?
Right.
Basically.
And at the time, ARCA
has this kid that's undeveloped going to help us?
Yeah. We're thinking, what's wrong with you, Ray? You know what I mean? Like, well.
And ARCA could run a lot of Cup equipment. In that time.
Yeah.
So
you can run our motors or anything you want to really.
Right. So if you develop an ARCA program with Cup, you're going to do well.
Right. You should.
Yeah.
So they're off running ARCA, and it wasn't going too good. And anyway, after that interview the next morning, like my motorhome driver come in, he goes. It's funny, his name was Buster, he's like, man, you ain't gonna believe this. I said, well, he's from Georgia, South Georgia.
Yeah, good people.
He opened his paper up like this, like the Chicago Tribune or something like that, real big, and it was a whole page like this.
No.
Look, just big picture of Ray with his headset on.
Right.
And had this big of letters. Mayfield says he has an absentee car owner.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking,
here we go.
I'll never forget that. And worst thing you do to Ray is throw him out there and make him like an idiot. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, or anybody.
Especially him.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you didn't do this all the time, Ray, like that. He was, everything had to be Ray, you're the greatest, you're the greatest, or he'd be pissed at you.
Okay.
Well, now he's just reading. Mayfield says all this, you're just big picture of him. I mean, like huge.
Yeah, it's coming in.
And the Chicago Tribune, that's like, it doesn't get any bigger than that.
Yeah, right.
So I said, oh, So he flies in that morning after race Sunday morning. We had a meeting, and I was like, Ray, I'm just telling you, you know what they're after, and I know what they're after. It did not come across like that.
Yeah.
So we had to go to this press conference that morning.
Because of this?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Say we're fine.
He set up a big press conference saying that we're fine and everything's good. And,
Yeah.
and I basically didn't know what the I was talking about. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I sit there and I was like, yeah, I basically didn't know what I was talking about. so even though I did, I didn't say I didn't. So I knew right then, I was like, I won't be here another
short-lived.
I won't be here another month. He can't fire me right now because it'll look bad, but I won't be here long. And, so about 4 or 5 races later, I ended up getting fired. But and I don't know. It's just I think about all that stuff went on, but I got pissed off after I got fired, kind of, and said, well, I told Ray that morning actually. I said, Ray, you know what they're after, I know what they're after. Why don't you just? You're going to have to come clean. You know what I mean? Now you drug me in the middle of this.
Right.
Because they're trying to find. It is a affair he's having with this young girl.
Yeah, well, all they wanted to know was where's Ray, why is Ray not around, and they want me to tell them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Instead of me telling them, I'm just sitting there saying, not lying and not telling. I'm telling the truth about. I don't know where he's at.
Yeah, he's not here though.
Well, but they were like basically gonna fuck me because I didn't tell them anything. Boom, send me that. So I tell him that it's like, man, they know they know what's going on. People, the word's getting around here. He said, I can't tell them nothing because I cannot ruin that girl's career.
Right.
I'm not going to ruin her career.
Okay.
I thought, well, it's going to come out. You know what I mean? It's coming out.
Yeah. Small world.
Well, then we had a, I forgot when this was. Oh, yeah. See, we all knew it like a year before this.
Yeah.
And the year they took my team away from me, he took my team guys from me.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that his wife had found out about it. And we're at the banquet.
Okay.
Oh, I guess y'all hear all shit. Hell, it don't matter. We're at the banquet, and this is another thing I didn't do right. And she's sitting there, and Mary was great. I love Ray Evernham. She goes, I had my camera, I had a new camera I got around her somewhere. I was taking pictures. She said, here, take a picture of me. And she goes, like this, and I took a picture of her, and Ray was off doing something. She said, will you do a good picture of her? And I said, yeah, why? She said, will you get that printed real big as you can and get that to Ray at the Christmas party? Man, that's great, right? I thought, I'm gonna get some brownie points here,
Yeah.
She wants me to give her a picture. Ray, all right. Well, at our Christmas party, she wasn't there. Like Mary didn't show up at the Christmas party. They say she's sick home. Whatever.
Okay.
All right. I didn't know what was going on.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. She'd already knew what was going on when she told me to do that.
Okay.
So at the Christmas party, I go up there and present Ray in front of everybody a picture of his wife.
Yeah, like an asshole. Yeah. Just like, hey, here you go. Like thinking you're doing something
Everybody out there knew that Mary was great. She was homesick.
Yeah.
Now I'm presenting her with a picture of her.
Right.
A big picture of her. She's smiling, looking like this.
Yeah.
Not realizing why she wasn't at the Christmas party.
Right.
So that went over real well. So I did everything you could. But see, you know what's funny? None of this has anything to do with racing.
Right.
That's what pisses me off about this.
Right.
And none of that had anything to do with me driving a race car. My ability to drive a race car.
Yeah.
None of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when all that happened and just, then the rest of the year he wouldn't talk to me, then all the shit came and I got fired.
Yeah.
That's basically what happened to everyone. To sum it all up.
How do you get fired specifically? Like what happens? You get called into the office, you get a phone call? Like walk us through that. We talked to Parker Klickerman about this and he had several different versions.
Yeah, there's several versions. You can Penske will just show up at your office and say, look, you're fired, pay your contract.
Kind of man up and
Well, Ray tried to do it the chicken way, and he's after Indy, we ran bad, and this, that, and the other, and so he just makes a call to my business manager, and business manager told me,
Okay.
But, he thought he was just going to fire me for no reason, and I just sign a contract, you know what I mean?
Right.
And nowhere in that contract said that, if the owner's having an affair, and I know about it, I can't say nothing. They didn't say that nowhere, you know what I mean?
Right.
So what are you firing me for?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There wasn't no reason to fire me, and so we had to do a lawsuit deal, that within a week, because and basically what we did, we filed an injunction or something like that, and then we won Friday. Well, we won the injunction. I'm the exclusive driver of the 19 car.
Right.
Well, Bill's at Watkins Glen going to drive the 19 that weekend. Well, they pulled him out of line and said, well, you can't drive. You're not going to be able to drive the car because we just won the injunction.
Yeah.
So, but what happens then is NASCAR gets pissed off when you have to do things like that.
Yeah.
They
that doesn't look good.
Oh yeah. And see, Brian Franz and Ray are good friends. Buddy.
Yeah.
So now, basically I'm making NASCAR look bad, because I filed an injunction, because I got fired for no reason, but I'm not supposed to say anything, you know what I mean? And I'm supposed to go home and not eat for how long, you know what I mean? And even though I have a contract. So anyway, that just set off a bunch of stuff, and then ended up, he had to pay me or the car wasn't going to run that weekend, and then he paid me part of it. I didn't even ask for my contract, just enough to get me through the rest of the year, and I was fine,
Yeah, right.
And then, but that pissed off, Brian and Ray and everybody, and then it was downhill from there, you know. So that's why I'm not afraid to tell you the truth about anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when things like that happen, you get blackballed in that sport. You get anything can happen to you. You know.
Right. So you're out of a gig. What's the thought process as far as, like, I mean, you're pounding. I assume at this point you're pounding the pavement, letting everybody know you're looking around.
Well, I had a ride before. When I got fired, I already had another ride.
You knew it was
Bill
coming.
Davis, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I already, when the picture come out in the paper, I knew then I better start looking. And I might make it to the end of the year, I might not, you know.
Right.
That's something that I looked at everywhere I went, I looked at it like, and even today, like, I'm happier right now than I ever was.
Yeah.
Driving a NASCAR Cup car, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Because now driving part, the best thing in the world for me.
Right.
But I can't handle all the bullshit along the way, you know? I got caught up in so much just stupid shit like that right there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just get it out of the way. Obviously, the big headline behind your career becomes the drug test thing.
The what?
Apparently, I want to say it was.
Say what? What are y'all talking about? Y'all must have the wrong driver here. You meant to get here or somebody, did you?
Right, exactly.
Oh, yeah. You meant to get on here, I think.
Nope.
Well, I just threw his name out there. I'm not sure why I did. You know.
Well, before we get into the tough stuff, you started your own team leading into that, which I always found kind of a really bold move. So you were with Bill Davis for a couple of years, and then, correct me if my timeline's right, Bill Davis folds.
Yeah, when I started there, they're supposed to have a big sponsor, huge sponsor. It's going to be great. Well, it didn't show up. It didn't pan out.
I mean, they were the Caterpillar team forever, and then that went over to RCR.
Now we're the second team over there that he's done signed a contract with me on, and he's going to run, but it's no sponsor involved.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So that's gone, and now you're like, I need to figure something out.
Right.
So with no
and by then you can tell I probably got a good chance of being blackballed around there. I done pissed Ray off, Brian. I've done pissed a lot of them off.
And according to you, that Ray and Brian were really tight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so you decided to start your own team.
Yeah.
Mayfield Motorsports.
Mayfield Motorsports.
Yeah.
Where was Shayna on starting your own team? Because that's a bold move.
She was cool with it all. I mean, she really didn't. I mean, she liked it as long as I was doing it right and going to do it right. You know.
Yeah.
But when people usually speak up is when it all goes bad. You know what I mean? Now, what the hell did you do that for? Why'd you do this? You know.
Right.
But our deal, we had just we just signed a sponsor. You know, right before all that happened.
That was All Sport.
Well, we had them already, but this was a big company. Or it wasn't a big company, but they had a good idea what they was going to do. We signed a contract with them for like 3 years, and we're going to switch back to Dodge and all kind of good stuff. You know, getting ready to happen. But then that happened. Yeah. You know, but and then you're an idiot for ever starting a race team, you know, for doing that after that happened. But it is. It is.
At the time, it was like, great idea.
At the time, everything's good.
But the story, as you're putting it, is that it wasn't a bad business move because you had a lot of lined up already.
Right.
So it wasn't like you're just like, I'm just going to figure it out and go and spend millions of dollars that no one has.
Well, also,
it was kind of like that. But
you strike me as the guy that's like tired of dealing with other people's bullshit. And you're thinking, okay, at least at this point now I can control my own destiny.
Right. Yep. And that's what I was wanting to do. And we made the Daytona 500.
Yeah.
Right. Like just started and went out there and made the 500 and had a lot of good stuff going. We knew it was going to struggle because of the way the points were and and just the way the whole thing went down. But I felt like we could have. Well, looking back now, probably wouldn't survive. Robbie was right there with us. You know, he didn't survive it, and Tommy Baldwin I don't think survived. There's a bunch of people that tried it, and just didn't work. Knowing what we know now, the way they got it now, it wouldn't have mattered if we survived. We never would have going to be where we needed to be.
Yeah.
My ultimate dream was if I had $100 million won the lottery, I'd take $75 million of it. And I'd have the baddest damn race team was. I'd live on 25. You know what I mean? To keep it over to live on.
Right.
But I'd spend every bit of just to go in and prove a point to them.
Yeah. Right.
And you could do it pretty easy, But a lot of these people jump in, these owners jump in, and they go. I've seen this over the years. They'll have $15 million, let's say, and they don't tell you how much they can spend. You just know they're. This guy runs this big citation.
He's got a lot of money.
Yeah, y'all see the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll come in and they'll spend. They don't need a sponsor, man. They're hiring everybody because it's easy to go hire a bunch of people and get a shop and get some cars. That's easy, you know what I mean? But it's running good after that. It's the hard part, And so they'll go spend all this money and they'll spend $6 or $8 million and everything's great and they're there for the long haul and got their nice uniforms on. Everything's looking good, but they're not running good.
Yeah.
And then they get pissed off because they're like, well, I spent $8 million. I'm running 35th.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, then that lasts about a couple of years and then they'll spend all their money. Then they're like, screw this. I'm not going to send them have a $500,000 payroll a month, and whatever, and so I wasn't going to be one of them for sure. I just
because that story is not unique to NASCAR. That's every race team in the world.
That happens all the time, and it's funny because these owners they're all when they first start off sponsors the same way. They're like, we just want to run, we just want to make all the races.
Right.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
no way. They want to win.
Yeah, it lasts about 2 weeks, and then they're like, okay, if we can just get in the top 20, we're spending $5 million. Well, Hendricks is spending $15 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then they start feeling like, and then they, but they expect you to go out and run as good as everybody else.
Yeah, make up the difference.
Yeah. So I wasn't gonna be one of them. I'd rather be the guy that didn't have any money and try to make the best of it.
Right. Before all the testing happened, as a team owner, did you feel any, like now you're a team owner, you're not just a driver that's expendable the way that 42 other assholes are. Like now you're one of a dozen guys that are out there as a team owner. Did you feel any extra grief as a team owner in terms of like you're now an even bigger voice than you were prior, and if you felt like you weren't very welcome, this would make it worse?
I really didn't. I didn't even care. I didn't even think of it like that. I just, that's something else that I didn't. I guess I was just stupid and didn't see along the way was, I thought. I guess I was naive to think this, but you could still go take some money, buy some cars, and go run a race team. You know what I mean? And you go race NASCAR, and it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, that's what everybody thinks, right? That's all I did. And I'd been around it forever and thought that's the way you could do it. Well, again, another mistake I made was I started this team. I bought the cars, bought the trailer, tractor, and I had some guys working for me. And we only had a couple weeks to go Daytona. So, okay, let's go Daytona. Well, meanwhile, I got bought Toyota cars, so I had Toyota motors.
Right.
And the guys at Toyota, TRD, knew the All-Sport guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he jumps on, and right off the bat, within 2 weeks, now we got enough money to go, and it's not going to be a big deal.
Right.
But I need to make the race to have enough money to get home on, pretty much. To keep it going. Yeah. And that's your whole thing. You got to make Daytona. So we're going to make the Daytona 500, and then got a lot of publicity, and everything was great.
And you did it the right way. Like you had to race your way in. You were like the last guy to make it.
And it felt good. It felt like a good story.
Yeah. And this was 09. So 08, we'd had the biggest economic crash we'd had in decades. And now everybody who thought they were enterprising, we know one, thought that they could just come in with a team because the market would be so low. And it turned out the opposite happened.
And there was 58 cars, 60 cars that show up.
It's a record number of guys,
And so along the way, I look back now and I'm like, it was in the Gatorade Dual 150s or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think about it, but I'm sitting there. We got all this publicity out there. I'm running the all-sport Toyota. You know what I mean? I didn't ask NASCAR. I didn't even ask them to come there. I just thought I got my license to go racing. Didn't even inform them I was going to start my team. Because I didn't have time for one. And so a lot of the stuff like that was wrong too. Because the worst thing they want you to do, they don't want you to come in, and y'all, you see this what I'm talking about now. They don't want you to come in and steal what they call their TV time. Yeah, it's their TV time, and they will decide who's on it and who's not. Okay, well, you just show up there, and all of a sudden you're the story of the week, and they ain't got nothing to do with it. Nobody in NASCAR has nothing to do with it, and we're getting more airtime than everybody else is getting. Kind of what it looked like, and that's the stuff that up at the top looks at. Because you're the Cinderella story, unemployed driver that's now started his own deal. And if they kind of knew about it, they might have endorsed it, maybe not, because it was a relationship. But we go out there and it's almost like throw it in their face, and run good and. Now what? We made the Daytona 500, which is huge. That was the story of the week, the whole week there,
Right.
With all sport in the Gatorade race,
Yeah.
And so just stuff like that, and everything was going the wrong direction. It was going right, but it wasn't really going right. I didn't realize at the time. Right. I don't know how y'all's deal is, but can you just show up and run any sponsor you want to run? Or?
No, I mean, it's not as controlled, but if you did show up with something necessarily like inappropriate, they would.
Yeah, we've done it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
One of my clients.
Yeah.
And yeah, they'll stop you.
Yeah. It's not as critical as what you guys do.
Right.
Yeah. But it's still there. Yeah.
If y'all want to get back, know we're heading to the drug test, but when I started the team, I don't know how to say this more than I've always worked on cars. That's all I've done.
Yeah, your fingers are dirty right now.
I know. That's paint on them.
Yeah, working, man.
Hey, they were worse than that. I scrubbed the hell out of them way back. But they, that's all I've ever done. I'd rather be the guy that you handle all the computer stuff. I can, I mean. But I hate it. I cannot stand paperwork. I don't like receipts. I get behind on all my stuff all the time. I just suck at that. And that's if any of my weaknesses is that right there. But I'll go out and work my ass off out there in the hot sun, do whatever you need to do. Yeah. And so I knew when we started the team deal, that I wasn't going to be good at that. You know what I mean? And then I'm thinking, okay, well, so you hire people put in place. I had my secretary lady that was doing my stuff before, my business manager, they were doing it. But I was just like, I got to do something to get me more focused on some of this, making phone calls, everything, you know. And 'cause I was terrible at it, know. And so I went and got because my wife told me I had ADD or something like that before, several times. And I kind of known that all my life. Like, I can't even, how it is. You read, y'all probably the same way. You read something. I could read a page of a newspaper and not even know what it said.
I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, Anyway, so I went and got diagnosed with ADD, whatever.
But you were clinically diagnosed.
Yeah.
Like you saw a doctor and the whole thing, and you got.
Oh yeah,
okay.
this was in.
09.
Yeah, I think actually December. Yeah, December,
08.
January, something
Okay.
like. 08, 09.
Yeah.
Before I started my racing.
Okay.
So when that happened, went and got diagnosed, and I thought, okay, I heard. I didn't know Adderall was a bad thing.
Sure.
You know, I heard Adderall. You know.
Yeah.
Well, she put me on Adderall and started off like 20s or whatever it was, and moved it. You know, you move up depending on how if it's doing you any good.
Right.
Well, I started taking 20s until it was 30 days. Went back. It's like I don't know if I feel anything or not. My wife's telling me she thought it helped me, whatever. So I went to 30s, whatever. So now I'm taking Adderall, 60 days maybe.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there going, I don't think it's doing much for me. You know. But I noticed I could watch a movie when I went home. You know, watch the whole movie.
Right.
Which before you weren't able to do.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
And so I would go home, watch TV, and talk normal, and but I go to bed at night, couldn't sleep.
Yeah,
right. Just saying, well, I was watching like C-SPAN and shit. Like I ain't never watched that in my life. Middle of the night, and loved it. It's about the time when all the dealers had to go to Congress and all that.
Oh yeah.
I was all into it, man, just all night long. I was like, so that was going on. I was like, this shit ain't good. I don't know what this is supposed to do, what I'm supposed to feel like, but
Yeah.
I almost feel like it made me like if I was sitting here right now, I'd be like, I kind of be like.
So it would numb you up, but
It's kind of what he's saying a lot. It took my edge off, kind of like I kind of like living on the edge a little bit. Being a little bit edgy. It's better than sitting there watching TV boring. So I thought. So I started taking it. And then I have allergies like probably beginning of the year and the end of the year. Like I might sneeze a little bit, and my nose might just run for 2 days. And it's over. It's like a spell I have. Just when the yellow shit gets on the collar
and all that.
Eyes itchy, everything.
Right.
Well, I've been taking Adderall. We're going to Richmond, and I had raced at Talladega the week before, and my car caught on fire. We got in a big wreck, and it's the first time I'd ever had to jump out of a car. You ever had one smoke all the way up on the inside? Mm-hmm. I felt like I was suffocating.
Yeah, right.
All right, so I'm just breathing the smoke, and I ain't never had that in my whole career. I stop on the front stretch, everybody slows down, I bail out of my car, and I'll never forget that feeling I had. Like I felt like I had that shit just all over my lip, everywhere.
Right.
So. Went home and pretty much was kind of sick all week, being dehydrated, just didn't feel good, You have days like it when after your race, it takes you a couple of days to recuperate.
Yeah, we do like 24-hour races at Daytona.
Yeah.
You follow a guy with a cracked header for an hour and a half.
Yep, same thing. Yeah, right, carbon monoxide, all that stuff. So Shane is driving to Richmond, and I was like, and I take Claritin D, the only thing that helped me, Claritin D.
And Claritin D has Sudafed in it.
Yeah. And I took one that morning for I left, didn't even take the rest of it with me. I said, that'll knock it out, right? This is 6 o'clock at night, and I'm still just,
buckets.
Going crazy. Just bad, sneezing, just felt like shit. I was like, man, I can't wake up in the morning feeling like this, But usually it'll go away in 24 hours.
Right.
So we get to Richmond, she said, I'm stopping at the CVS, and we're getting you something, take. I said, well, we'll go in. I got video of all this shit. 1 o'clock in the morning, I roll in CVS, me and her. And
when you say video, you mean like
from the CVS
security?
Store.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to get all that shit.
Right. After that, yeah.
After the fight, all this.
10-4.
So I go in, get my Claritin D. I took because I'm worried about waking up with this in the morning. I took one that day.
You got to work tomorrow.
Right, I got one that day, and I took one at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So I took 2. Those are 24 hours.
Yep.
So I took 2 Claritin Ds in 24 hours, basically.
Right.
I didn't think nothing of it. You know what I mean? I was going to sleep regardless. I felt bad, And so go in and go sleep and motor home. Wake up next morning, great, overdone, everything's good.
Yeah.
Take my Adderall. And they told us in our drug thing that year, like in our meeting we had before, like during Daytona week, whatever they said, they had a new drug policy come out. It said, or the year before they told us this, because it was actually 1 year afterwards. But it said if you're taking anything, it's okay to take whatever you want to take. But if we test you, just make sure that you tell us what you're taking, basically.
Okay. Right.
So I didn't feel like I had any reason to tell them I was taking Adderall. I'm not worried about it. My doctor prescribed it, and if you test me, I'm just going to tell you what I'm taking.
Right.
So that morning at Richmond, we go and I run my car, and practice was about over with, and they come on, we're going to drug test you.
Yeah. How many times have you been drug tested before that?
Beginning of the season, like January that year.
Okay.
We always do it. Everybody does.
Right.
But it used to be if they thought you were messed up or something, they could do it. Whatever. Then it became random, a random test.
Yeah.
So, I get out of my car and go up there, and we're sweating, just normal deal. Mm-hmm. And there's about 6 or 7 of us. I think Kenseth and Damon Shea, a bunch of us.
Handful of people.
Yeah, we're all sitting there ready to take our test, But it's funny because we're on this trailer that they use for an office, We're all sitting around like this after practice. Everybody's sweating, and just pouring sweat.
Right.
And then you just walk right up the steps, and there's a guy up there with some, just like this. Oh, shit, just on the table, and his stuff scattered everywhere, and he's the one giving the test.
You're right.
So first time I'd had one at the racetrack ever. So I noticed it was like, I've had a lot of drug tests in the past that it didn't quite look like this one right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do y'all have to do it? Y'all have to
We're only if they suspect something or whatever.
Yeah. So we roll up in there. You know, my turn. I go up in there, and I swear it looked like this. Right. You know, just stuff there, paper stuff everywhere. And the guy's sitting there, and he's like, "Okay, your name." Writes my name down, and he goes, hands me this cup. You know, and he pops the top over here. That is, you know. And okay, go in there and pee in the cup. You know. I said, "Okay, cool." You know. I'm talking about I've been in a race car, dirty, sweating, whatever.
Yeah.
Walk in the bathroom. I said, "Oh," and I go in there and do it. And he goes, "Oh, hang on a minute." Opens the door up. I come back out, have my suit pulled down. You know, come back out, and he said, "I forgot to tell you to wash your hands." Okay. So he takes my cup away from him. I go in and wash my hands real good. You know.
Right.
Hands me my cup back, which is all this is wrong.
Okay.
What I'm doing right now.
Okay.
I knew that after we figured it all out. So I go in there and I pee in the cup. Come back out and hand it to him. Some seals it. Sign off. There you go.
Right.
I said, "Well, look. Who am I supposed to tell about? I'm taking Adderall. Claritin D was already on my list, my profile a long time ago.
Okay. Yeah.
But I was taking that. I said, "Who am I supposed to tell this to?" He said, "Oh, here's a card. Just call this guy," which is Dr. Black.
Okay.
All right. Dr. Black owns the lab.
Right.
Okay. And if you do get in trouble or you don't pass the test, you have to go through him to go through the road to recovery to be able to get back into racing. So it's one guy.
Okay.
All right. The reason why Dr. Black is doing the drug testing program for NASCAR is because the one before Dr. Black, when Tim Richmond got tested, come out about 3 months later that he falsified the results for Richmond to get Richmond out of the sport. Y'all remember? Y'all know all that?
Yeah, we know the Tim
Okay,
Richmond
so then
story,
Dr. Black starts right then from the next day on, from the next years on.
Yeah.
All right, he also is the one that done the WWE or whatever for Vince McMahon and them.
Right, that was steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you know the story about that. He was doing the drug testing for that, saying basically the opposite. Oh, you know, he's clean, but
Right.
yet your superstar just went on a mass murder and killed his whole family.
Yeah.
Chris Wall or whatever.
And then they did an autopsy on him, and he
Right,
had steroids.
full of steroids.
Yeah.
Goes back and checked the test, and he's all clean and all of them.
Right.
Dr. Black's that guy. Yeah, so then they got rid of Black on that deal too, you know. Now he's NASCAR's guy because of a lot of reasons probably, but it's just one man can't be in control of everything and nobody looking over that one man. You know, does that make sense? All right, so I go and I call Dr. Black. I couldn't get hold of him, couldn't get in touch with him, and finally he calls me back Sunday night after the race. Meanwhile, this was on Friday. I practiced and qualified, peed,
Yeah, right.
then qualified, and raced the next night. Raced a NASCAR Cup race, and everybody who's at the racetrack knows I was perfectly normal. I'm no different than I am right now.
Not acting weird, right?
Right. All right, so then Sunday he calls me, and this is exactly what happened. He said, "Jeremy, just Dr. Black calling you back." I said, "Yeah, Dr. Black, you told me to let you know if I was taking anything. They tested me Friday, and I was trying to get in touch with you Friday night to let you know I don't know how this process works." You know? Oh, really? Just total dickhead. You know, I was like,
okay.
"Yeah, total asshole." I said, "Yeah," and he hadn't seen nothing yet. You know, they ain't even sent the stuff to his lab yet, right?
Okay.
And he says, "What were you taking?" I said, "Well, I was taking I said I got put on Adderall, you know, like back in January or whatever, and I was taking Adderall by a doctor, you know, this, that, and the other." As soon as I said Adderall, he said, "Adderall?" He said, "Oh, wait a minute. What's a person your age doing taking Adderall?" Well, I'm stuck. I'm like, I said, I got diagnosed ADD, you know. And you're telling me a person your age, and they put you on Adderall just like that?
Right.
I mean, this wasn't nothing. This is straight just like I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah." I said, "If there's a problem, I'll quit taking it." You know, I didn't know there was a problem with it. Well, he said, "I'll just see what the results are, you know, when it comes in your test, and we'll go from there." I ain't even told him about Claritin D yet. I said,
okay.
I said, well, there's another problem then. He said, "What's that?" I said, I was taking my Claritin D too along with it, but that's on my thing. I'm just letting you know I took one night before. You know, I had a damn test, whatever. I didn't know what either one of them would show up as.
Right.
I'm just letting you know that's what I was taking.
Sure.
And he did, and he goes, "Oh, now we got a problem." I said, "A problem? What do you mean problem?" He said, "Sounds like to me you're trying to get jacked up for these races. Swear to God on my life, strike me dead right now." I said, "Jacked up for the races?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, that is, you know, I don't even know what you're calling. I said, "I'll quit taking whatever you want me to quit taking."
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about. So went on after that. So then
And
that Thursday,
and he hasn't seen a test or anything yet.
he ain't seen nothing.
Yeah, this is all just
he doesn't even know me.
Right.
But that's the only words he said to me was, you know, just what I told y'all. I'm like blown away. I got off the phone and told my wife. I said, "Well, it's either gonna be real good or real bad. I'm not sure what they'll tell you right now."
Right.
You know, and so anyway, the week went by and everything went on, and then they come out. There's another guy called me, Dr. Ackerman or somebody calls me like Thursday at night at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
We're on our way to Darlington.
Right.
Because I didn't hear nothing all week, you know, and says, you know, Jeremy, your test results show positive, this, that, and the other. And I said, well, I figured it would, for something, not sure what.
Yeah.
Oh, positive for amphetamines, what he said. I said, okay. I called Dr. White and told him that. And he said, well, if you'll get your this was a totally different dude. I don't know who the guy was.
Yeah. Okay.
If you'll get your doctor's, all your paperwork, prescription, I already had it already, and send that to us, I'll look at it, and then if everything works out right, we'll classify this as a negative result.
Right. And to clarify, both the D part of Claritin D and Adderall are both amphetamines, or they have amphetamines in them.
Right. Yeah, amphetamines. Yeah. And by then we'd already done research on it, and knew, that week, because of what he told me,
Right.
So this guy here tells me this. I said, okay, cool. That's the way it's supposed to work, right? So I get my doctor, and she's already had everything ready. And she sends it to him that night. Everything's great. Wake up at next morning, Friday morning. I'm at Darlington to get a call. It's Dr. The same guy again. Calling back. He said, Jeremy, is this Dr. Ackerman? Yeah, man, what's going on? He said, hey, I got all your paperwork and stuff from, and this is why I knew I was in trouble too. He goes, because my wife, they're good friends of ours, and she's a PA, physician's assistant or whatever.
Okay.
All right, well, the doctor that works there, where I got all my assessments and stuff done, his name's Charlie Ackerman. He's actually a doctor. She's a PA.
Okay.
But she owns what they call Vitality Med Spa.
Okay.
And it's up in Hickory, and it's a beautiful place, and it's where women go get all their, men too, but they get like their hormones, Botox, lips done.
Yep.
I live in Southern California. These are very popular.
Same thing.
So,
same thing.
Okay.
And they got a lot of people that are just clients of and patients of theirs that you can go in. You can see them as a doctor, or you can get anything you want done. They even have surgery there. They do all the
some of the big,
whatever you want done, you can get done.
Right.
So he goes. I got all your paperwork and stuff from Vitality. That's the name of it.
Okay.
But he's like Vitality Med Spa, like that. And I was like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
And just that, because he said it like a smart ass, Yeah, and I'm like, okay. And he said, let me ask you, I got a few questions for you. So, all right. Have you inhaled anything? You inhaled any kind of chemicals or anything? I don't think so. What do you mean inhaled anything? I don't smoke or nothing. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I just didn't know if you had inhaled anything. Nothing at all, huh? I said, no. He said, you said you were sick. Did you inhale anything there? No. Everything's great. Okay, I'll get back with you. So he hangs up, and I thought, that's weird. Now I had to go practice my car.
Yeah.
And I come back, I'm thinking, oh shit! When I was at the I thought I was at the racetrack. I got suffocated the week before.
From all the
I'm
fire
thinking
and
I was
everything.
smoking shit. I thought, damn, maybe that showed up or something. Maybe that's what he's talking about.
Okay.
Hell, I'm excited now. I did inhale something.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean, like that. So I go back and he calls me back. I say, hey man, I forgot to tell you this. The week before I was at Talladega and I had to jump out of my car. I was blowing black smoke rings out.
Yeah, right.
That's how bad it was. He said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Okay, cool. He said, I said, well, what do you need? He said, well, what I'm calling back for, do you want us to do a second test on you? I said, second test? I mean, I don't care, whatever you want to do, if that's what you want to do, I'd be more than happy to.
Right.
He said, no, what I'm talking about, he said, we got your B sample. Do you want us to have your B sample sent off and tested somewhere else? I said, well, let me ask you something. I said, no, I'm dumb,
Don't need to worry about this? Yeah,
I said, well, there's a sample, and they, because they split it apart when you pee in a cup.
Uh-huh.
I said, I'm pretty damn sure that if my A sample showed something, the B sample should show the same thing.
Right.
He said, yeah, unless the lab made a mistake. I said, well, what kind of mistake you talking about? What's the deal,
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, I need to know if you want me to send your B sample off to get tested. I said, well, whatever you want to do, I don't care. At this point, I got tired of talking about it, basically. I was like, whatever you feel like you need to do, do it. I can get ready to go qualify, So I never heard no more about it. And then I didn't make the race. We barely missed a race by a few 100, something like that. And then, after the race, that was on Friday night, we drive home, me and my wife drive home. I think it's all weird as day, but I'm kind of down because I didn't make it, and that another. Woke up Saturday morning, they took a call from them saying you've been suspended indefinitely from NASCAR, from John, Darby. And that point on, it just went. I mean, I could tell y'all stuff, man, to blow your mind as far as what they done. They took my B sample. I've never seen a B sample yet. Okay. It's been tested yet from NASCAR.
Right.
I've been both B samples. They opened up and they tested themselves, the same lab. All right, we had a meeting with them before I sued them, because they come out on the news everywhere. Mayfield fails drug test everywhere. Just blew me away. Made a huge deal out of it. We had a meeting with them the following week with my attorneys and everybody, and we sitting there and listening to Dr. Black along with the NASCAR guy sitting in front of the attorneys to give us a 2-hour lecture on how nothing he does could ever go wrong in his lab. He's got the perfect lab. He never makes a mistake. This, and the other. He said he knows so much about it because he started his company. He was doing the testing. Now he doesn't. Well, my attorney does this. This right here ought to be enough alone. My attorney said, well, I've heard everything you're saying, how you can't make mistakes, and all that stuff's right. He said, why did you decide to test his? to test? I'm supposed to be a number, not a name, right? He said, well, Jeremy called me, and told me, so I want to make sure to look at it myself. He ain't testing. He just told us he ain't tested in years, And my attorney does this. He goes, well, let me ask you something. So you did all the testing on his alone, the only one you done? Yep. He said, yep, that's the way it was. He said, well, what's the name of that chemical that you have to put in it that takes out the pseudoephedrine to make sure it's not a false positive? Strike me dead. Dr. White goes, just like this. This is how long until he goes, I know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. And my attorney said, that's all right. You don't have to answer it. So he didn't, it's all bullshit, you know what I mean? And then it was amphetamines, the whole time amphetamines. Well, that day there, after we walked out that day, and they sent us, we ain't got no results from that. We didn't see nothing at that point. We finally got a white sheet of paper, blank piece of paper that had his letterhead on it and says, anybody could type in it. It says positive amphetamines, and it showed these numbers out here, nanograms per milliliter, and it showed I forgot what it was, 63, when I was 48,000 nanograms per milliliter of amphetamines, and then it says underneath that methamphetamines positive 67,000 nanograms per milliliter. All right, we don't know what these numbers are. It's just on a blank piece of paper. So we flip it over, and there's another piece of paper over here that's with it, kind of got mixed in the shuffle, and it says amphetamines none, methamphetamines none. So we're like, okay, which one do you want? Which one do you want me to read here? Because this and here says this and another. Oh, it's just a mess. So we went back and researched and had all these experts that were calling me then, the expert witnesses and stuff, calling me saying this can't be right and all this stuff. And so we learned a lot about testing procedure.
Sure.
Well, 67,000. First of all, you got to have your percentage of amphetamines has to be so much to make the methamphetamines.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
they can't be on one without the other. You know what I mean?
I've been looking it up. So basically, the classification somewhere in my writing here between amphetamines, and amphetamines are legit in Sudafed and Adderall. Right. But a methamphetamine is considered a street drug, and it's double methylated is the term.
Right, but even the street drug has so much amphetamines in it.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
right,
so
right.
the percentage.
It's basically it's amped up, but it's a simple term.
There's a percentage, but you can't have one without the other. See, if you test positive for methamphetamines, it's going to be amphetamines too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so
but not necessarily the other way around.
Maybe, it's one of the two. And so 67,000 nanograms per milliliter was we had this one guy that was helping us. He was a doctor, called from somewhere. He did all this research and stuff, and he got back with it. He said, man, the highest that they could find that anybody ever that OD'd on methamphetamines, that was dead. You know how alcohol is 0.40, you're dead, legally dead, that's what they call it. Well, methamphetamines was 25 or 28,000 nanograms per milliliter.
And you're 67.
I'm 60. On that paper showed me 67,000 nanograms per milliliter. He said there's no way possible. He said asked my wife, he said, was he awake? Was he, how do you act? Because normal, you know what I mean? He said there's no way possible. That's like having 0.12 alcohol.
Yeah.
Or not 0.12, but 12.0 or whatever it is. And after racing being normal. And so that triggered all this stuff going on. And then we was like, man, we got them by the balls now, you know what I mean? And then it become methamphetamines on the news after I got an attorney, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then it started up there and just took off, and I tested. That point on, I tested every week. I went and did our own test, and I had this guy come in doing a documentary on us and stuff, and every week was filming me walking in there and get my drug test back. They didn't
from
know
a third party.
They didn't know I was doing this, And then we wanted our B sample. They couldn't give us our B sample because they'd already opened it up.
So it'd be contaminated or whatever.
They opened my B sample up. All right, so then we ended up doing a second test, and they showed up at my house 7 o'clock at night, because where else are you going to get another third-party test after 7 o'clock at night? So NASCAR shows up at my door and they're going to test me. Okay, well, we already had it planned out. If they did that, what was going to happen? And so I went. My doctor had already made arrangements at the Fry Hospital. If that ever happened, we were immediately going straight there and doing them in the hospital with LabCorp.
Right.
And
which is a national drug test.
And that's a national drug test.
All my tests went through LabCorp except NASCAR's.
Okay.
Copy that.
And so we told them we wanted the B sample. The first one sent to LabCorp. No, they just refused. Oh yeah, I never got it, never seen it. So then on this test, they come in and test me. I said, okay, I want y'all on camera. I said, I want y'all to know something. I'm gonna pee in your cup, and I'm going straight right now and doing my other test. Then tell them where. I'm going straight and do another one right as soon as we get done. All right here all on camera. The camera guy watching, he's doing everything for us. And so we walk out behind them like this and beat them out my driveway to go up there. It took us 20 minutes to get there from my house. Go in the hospital, they do everything right. Go in there and pee in a cup. They do it right at the hospital like they're supposed to. And then come back, and that was through LabCorp. Showed nothing, zero. And what they didn't realize was, this is all on video too, was you get Adderall like 30 at a time, whatever it is. All right. Well, I'd go and get my prescription. When I got my prescription, I would be out. Be out because they check you every 30 days. Yeah. Well, I had my prescription, and I'd already told my wife, I'm going to quit taking that shit because it ain't done nothing for me. I feel like I'm just, all the time.
Okay. Yeah. I'm watching the news all night.
Yeah, and she was kind of wanting me to.
I know a lot about the economy.
She's wanting to take it. Well, I got busy or something, and 2 or 3 days went by, and I hadn't taken nothing. Then that came up, and I still had my prescription. Well, while we're at the hospital, she goes, go ahead and get your Adderall filled now because I was getting all I'm pissed off at them, So showed me going there and get my Adderall filled back up. Well, now it's perfect because LabCorp comes back clean, nothing. No amphetamines, no methamphetamines.
Yeah, because you haven't taken it in 3 days.
I haven't taken it. It may have been 3, 4, 5 days, whatever.
You're prescribed Adderall.
Right, but this is what's good though. Now if you're going to show me taking methamphetamines, you're going to show some kind of amphetamine in there if I'm still taking my Adderall. Right, for the NASCAR side of it. And all of our stuff's documented I wasn't taking. We knew it, and my attorney knew it. So they come out and didn't hear nothing. And then I got my results back from LabCorp, and there's a cutoff point to make sure there's no false positives. I forgot what it is. It's 500.
Yeah, there's some threshold.
Yeah, NASCAR claims they got the only zero tolerance testing there is. So LabCorp comes back nothing. Well, my attorney says, have them recheck it and drop the cutoff levels to make sure that they don't come back and say
with their
right. Yeah. So he calls. They call back and they get LabCorp to check it again and test it below the cutoff levels. Now we're sitting there perfect. Right, we're good to go. And it comes back clean.
So let me take a second. You confused me there. When you said have them check and make sure you're checking, meeting the cutoff levels, like they're not manipulating the results.
No.
So basically, they're taking away the safety.
Yeah. That NASCAR says they got zero threshold. So
but a real test.
So in the test, there'll be a safety margin in terms of what's.
Yeah, there is. Right. Yeah. So we wanted to make sure I was below. LabCorp has a safety margin.
Right.
Because anything under 500 or something like that, they consider that could be anything.
Right, but why would they change that data to present to somebody else if they're an independent third party?
No, they didn't change it. They tested it again. They tested my same ASAM. They retested it.
Retest it, but we can't put any of that margin in there. Is what you're saying?
No, they retested it below the margin.
So
like zero.
If anything was there, it would show up.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
We don't want NASCAR to come back and say, well, that's 500.
Yeah. So the margin of error is different than.
Yeah, that's all it is, margin of error. Yeah. So but we had ours tested again. It was zero cutoff level. So now it's zero. Now they can't say nothing.
Right. So if there's any trace of anything, it's going to show up.
Right. Yeah. Right. And if it shows up normally in that 500 range, it's false positive anyway.
Right, but you guys went above that to say like it's 0.00000.
Right, to make just so they couldn't say nothing.
Absolutely not.
Right, so we done that. And then they go and NASCAR goes a couple weeks, we didn't hear nothing. And about 3 weeks went by, nothing. 4 weeks went by, I thought, now we couldn't wait for them to come back because all they needed was me to pee in the cup again. Just me peeing in the cup, and they got me. At 7 o'clock at night, I'm screwed. That's why they're saying it. They can say whatever they want to say then. Well, about 3 or 4 weeks go by, and I finally my phone rang one day. Picked it up, and it's Dr. Black. Now he's playing the MRO because he shouldn't even be calling me. He owns the lab, testing my stuff, all this stuff, He said, hey, Jeremy's Dr. Black. How you doing? I said, I'm doing great. How about you, buddy? He said, well, I'm just calling to ask you a few questions here. And he said, are you still taking your Adderall? I knew why he was asking me that. I said, sure. Yeah, I've been taking it. I'm not going to quit taking that. Heck yeah, I'm taking it. Okay, that's need to know that. And another thing. I said, what's that? He said, after he asked me about the Adderall, I said, your test came back positive again. I said, imagine that. I said, for some reason, I could have told you that. I think I could have told you didn't have to test it, being smart ass to him, Well, yeah, Jeremy, this, that, and the other. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Is that all you need? Yep, all I need. Hung up. I thought, man, this is going to be perfect. And all of a sudden, that night, boom, here it comes back on Mayfield, test positive again, da-da-da-da-da. But if I'd told him no on the Adderall, I don't know which way it would have went then, but it's perfect. But then they come back next time and show still like 68,000 nanograms per milliliter on the methamphetamine.
So you're still a dead person.
Yeah, still dead. I've been died twice, man. And hadn't been to rehab or nothing.
You look great, man. Yeah.
So anyway, that's where it all started. Then my attorney shows the news. We got this and this is what happened. But at that point in time, they were wearing me out on the media with NASCAR because they're scared to death. And my little stuff gets put out here, barely nobody hears about it. And the judge sees it, and it's basically we had their ass kicked pretty much with the drug test stuff. You never heard no more about that after that. And now it was okay, but you're still going to be suspended indefinitely because you signed an agreement saying I can't sue them for any reason.
Right. As a hard card carrying.
Yeah, a hard card carry, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm like, what the? We went from you don't hear nothing else about the drug test deal. You know what I mean? Now you're hearing all about this, but they're still not going to let you in. So anyway, the judge finally, because this is somewhere else we screwed up too. We had attorneys from Charlotte. It was in Charlotte. They're not going to go against NASCAR or Rick Hendrick or none of them guys. You know what I mean? And the judges are all, I don't care if you put it on there. They're all politically pulling directions too, just like everybody else. It's all corrupt. You know what I mean? So the judge finally just throws the case out. But we appealed it, and then when we appealed it, there was a good chance we were going to win because my attorney's from Washington, this, that, and the other, Virginia, right? That's where the appeals court was. And we're thinking, okay, it's going to be great. So we appealed to the judge's decision, and we really felt like this is where we need to be anyway, away from here.
Yeah, in other words, by appeal, you're getting in a court that's out of the county, out of the area.
And then about a month later, or a month before, we were getting ready to hear the appeals process going to take place. We thought it was going to be heard. Then all of a sudden, my place gets raided. My shop and my farm, everything gets raided, and there's 90-something SWAT team members flying in there and looking for stolen steel scrap metal. You know what I mean? And I had $40,000 worth of copper sitting on my road bike. They never even asked a question about it. And they said, we're looking for, the search warrant said, looking for stolen steel plate. And I said, well, I had a whole bin of shit down there. Right? I never sold steel. Steel's like, that. We just made stuff out of that, fabricated with it. And I said, there's a whole damn bin down there if y'all want to go there and look down there and see, there's all kind of shit down there, I don't sell steel. Yeah, you can be mine. And so it was everywhere. You wouldn't believe it. AR-15s come in like I was damn. I stopped like this one time, looking around. I was like, man, there's something big that's went on around here somewhere. I said, they're looking for a damn mass murder here. This is crazy.
Pablo Escobar of steel.
Yeah, I swear it's what it looked like. I thought, damn, El Chapo was around here somewhere, And they was busting my door in at my house. Just it was unbelievable what happened. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there with copper everywhere, and insulation size of this whole building around here was stacked up. All legit. Everything was legit. And they were all in my place looking for everything, and I had a lot of people that come down there trying to sell me weed eaters and shit like that in the past, just normal being out in the country, what I mean, knowing we're down there, we making good money.
And you're scrapping stuff all the time.
So they come down there, and I bought stuff and didn't buy stuff. And this one dude that I wished I never met in my life come down there a couple of times, and he'd always try to bring me to sell. And I was like, I had a feeling about him. I was like, nah, I don't buy this, don't buy that. Well, he shows up one day with a PA system because I do auctions a lot, or was doing them. And
this is John Franklin?
Yeah.
Is this the guy? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he shows up, oh, Mayfield, and he hit me with something I needed, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And I didn't know he stole the stuff, I asked him, is it stolen? Nope. Okay, it's good enough for me, you know what I mean?
Right. How would you?
Right. And so I bought 2 speakers and a damn sound system board, whatever, from him, and come to find out that it was stolen, and he stole a pontoon boat, and just all kinds of shit, so.
And then this guy later on goes and is in a high-speed pursuit with the police and dies.
Yeah, and dies.
So he's a real trustworthy source.
And he's got on a motorcycle, got some girl on the bike with him and has a baby. And
oh, geez.
They got methamphetamines all on their bike and supposedly on them. And
But basically he was considered an informant that told the authorities that you had all kinds of stolen in your house.
But no, that's to get him down there. I mean, my opinion was I'd run him off from my farm because I heard he stole a pontoon boat. So he come there like once every other week or something. Just dumb guy. Like you don't even want him around you. He just shows up one of them guys and just kind of pain your ass.
Yep.
And I get that a lot because people just come there and Mayfield, down there. So you know what I'm talking about. So we have people come down there a lot, and some people if I didn't want them down there, I just wouldn't talk to them.
Right.
And so anyway, I think that when I heard he stole a boat, well, hell, I just bought that speaker from you. You come down here all the time. I don't want you down there. And I heard, I just had my own feeling that you could tell by looking at me, it wasn't too cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And I was like, you need to just go on down the road. And we leaves this little truck he had, hauled a little damn truck down there like a month before that, and it's still sitting there. I said, get your truck and go. He didn't listen. So I called and left him a message. I was like, dude, if you don't come get this truck, I'm going to haul it off.
Yeah.
I don't want you down here, Well, he didn't come get the truck, so we hauled it off. But piece of shit truck. I just didn't want to get it off my property, Right. Well, he comes down there then after that pissed off at me. You drove my truck, Yeah, we hauled it off and don't come back on my property, Then you got turned into an asshole, And so I pissed him off. You know what I mean? And I know that he went straight to NASCAR saying whatever he wanted to say, thinking I give a shit, you know what I mean, about it, And then I think that was our opportunity saying, let's talk to this guy. Because when we got our discovery throughout all that, which was table loads of stuff, there was a stack of papers. First stack we got, guess what's first page on it? NASCAR security, all their security numbers of NASCAR people working. So, okay, that makes sense. A month before my appeal, I get arrested for methamphetamines and stolen scrap metal. You know what I mean? And so, anyway, then we went to appeals court, and first thing out of their mouth to the people there, well, Mr. Mayfield was just arrested, put in jail for methamphetamines, And I'll show you what I got arrested for. Something about like that. You see in the corner of my hand right there? And they're all in my house. They're dumping out everything in my kitchen. They just destroyed my place. They're in my safe. Got my safe turned upside down, cutting one open. Got all my guns laid out, everywhere. I had a bunch of guns, all legal. None of them were stolen. And the guy comes out, pulls me outside, and he goes, "See what I got in my hand?" He's got his hand out like this. I said, "No." He said, "Got methamphetamines in my hand. Got a bag of meth in my hand." Really? Yeah, I don't care what you got in your hand. You know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking. He said, I just got it out of your safe. I said, you didn't get it out of my safe. There ain't no methamphetamines ever been in my safe. You know what I mean? He goes, oh, yeah, just like this. Never showed me nothing. He said, I'm going to let you think about this for a minute. We don't want to take you to jail, Jeremy. We want you to work with us. I said, okay, what do you want me to work with you about? He said, you go over and sit for about a few minutes. He said, and you think of where you're getting your drugs at. Tell us where you're getting your drugs at. I went over to sit down beside my wife. We're sitting out front. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? It'll blow you away how big this shit was, you know. And I was sitting there thought, and I told her, I couldn't even, if I had to try to think right now, where could you go buy methamphetamines at right now? Either one of you.
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
He tell you in L.A., but no.
I know, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
I said, if I even tried to make up some kind of shit, what do you tell me?
Right.
You know what I mean? So then something crossed my mind. I was like, okay. So they come back and got me. Said, all right, you know what? You gonna help us out here? And I said, I don't know what to tell you. I said, I couldn't tell you what, who to call or nothing. And he said, well, man, we don't want to do this to you. I said, well, wait a minute. I said, I know one place I know for sure. Don't know if you can find meth in there, but I know for sure you can get drugs there.
Yeah.
I said, oh, really, where's that at? And he gets all excited. I said, where are they racing at this week? I said, the NASCAR garage area. Nice. Oh my God, that was sent a fucking
light. Yeah.
And the next thing I knew after that, I was handcuffed and on my way to jail.
Right.
But that's what I got arrested for. Is that right there?
Uh-huh. Didn't all those charges get dropped?
Yeah.
From that whole situation?
Yeah.
So it didn't go any. It wasn't.
Well, I had to plead to something because when I wanted to go back racing again, which is 2.5 years later, this shit was drug out. 2.5 years we sit there and you can ask anybody that knows me that's heard this conversation. My attorney would call me and I'd get offered these pleas. I got arrested 5 times. I had to go turn myself in 5 different times in 3 different counties for 28 something felonies. I'm gone. I had one judge said, boy, he said, this is minimum 10 years apiece, 4 counts of something. It was stolen aircraft / tractor trailers, all kind of shit. And I'm like, I didn't even know what it meant. There's so much stuff. He said, it's 10 years apiece for this. That's 40 years right there just from 4 counts. And I'm thinking, I'm blown away. What the hell? And the DA was the DA, same DA for these all 3 counties. And they would send me these pleas, and I was like, does it have the word felony in it? Yeah. I said, the exact words, I swear on my life. And you tell me if a guilty person's going to say this. I'm looking at, don't tell how many years of all this stuff. I said, Dave, which is my attorney, I said, you make sure you tell Jay Gaither, that's the DA, tell him just like I'm telling you right now. He said, what's that? I said, tell him to go take that pleas guy and shove it straight up his ass, just like that. Swear to God on my life, that's a true story. I said, I'm not signing shit. I didn't do nothing, and don't be sending me no more like that. And then a couple months later, he'd fire another one at me. I said, this is over 2.5 years. I got 4 or 5, and every one of them I said, Dave, he's got the word felony in it, got the F in it, where, yep. I said, tell him to shove it straight up his ass. I'm not pleading shit. And then they had me in the paper talking about me going back racing if I got out all this shit, And I was smiling in the picture, just kind of like smiling about going back racing. Well, the DA calls my attorney, said he thought I was laughing at him. That I was smiling at him about it in the paper. So there wouldn't be no more pleas that he was going to try this case himself and make sure I got convicted. So I come back and I said in favor. I said, well, good. He needs to try one. He ain't tried one yet. He ain't tried the case yet. In the court, all of his assistants do it. I'm glad to see he's going to do it personally. You know what I mean? Well, it come out like that in the paper that I was glad to see he's going to do it personally. So I mean, if there's anybody that should have went to jail if I'd done something wrong, I would have went to jail. This somebody's after me, But I just kept wearing them. I was like, I'm ready to go. Let's go to trial. Because there ain't no way you're gonna show me doing any of that shit. You know what I mean? And it just got out of control, But now here we are.
Here we are. So I hope you don't mind me going here. Right. But when you're in prison, it's a foreign territory. It's something you got to figure out how to navigate. Were there any nicknames that kind of stood out to you? Like there's always some guy named Tiny or
Chapo or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The only one I can think of would be Gunselman or something like that. Gunselman.
Yeah.
Huh. It's the only one that sticks out. That was the one that really stood out in my mind.
I got you. Okay, so you go through all the trials and tribulations of that part of your life.
Right.
How you doing now, man?
Well, like I told you earlier, I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Everything's going as good as it can be. I want to. The only thing I'm kind of disappointed right now is I want to race my dirt late model more than I have been.
Okay.
That's the only thing. I really got a vision of wanting my own dirt team. Which it doesn't cost that much to do, but it does cost money, and I want to be able to run with the Lucas Oil guys and Bloomquist and all them guys.
What's biggest thing holding a sponsorship? I'm assuming.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I'm working on some stuff. But
okay.
You know how it is. It's hard to get sponsors for anything this day and time. But
right.
But in that, if not, I'll have to make enough money to do it on my own.
Okay. What series are you running in right now?
I just been running a few local races, around the local series, not really a series, you know, and there's several dirt car series like the Ultimate Late Models, and I run a race with them, and then there's Lucas Oil and this, that, and the other. But that's what I want to do is get on a circuit and run different racetracks, you know, instead of running like I run Cherokee some and just places like that, you know.
I got you. Your website, j2mayfield.com, have you been to it lately?
Do we still have that? No, I haven't been on the way.
Okay, yeah.
That's why we asked.
Yeah,
the
J2 stuff, that's all kind of gone. We had some guys come in and done a great job helping us market it. They just helped us out, and it just, you know, when you get involved in racing, sometimes you realize it's not really what you thought it was going to be or whatever. Right. I think that's where they were at, and we've kind of moved on from that. And on to the next chapter, I guess.
And the late model stuff's all self-funded.
Right.
So you're selling,
working.
You do what you can off the copper work and going after this.
Yep, and that's kind of the way it is. Most of those guys that run even full-time, they race full-time, you know, but they've already got some type of sponsorship or somebody behind them to get the money. And that's kind of what I like to do. I'd like to find a partner, somebody that don't mind spending some money on their own, but, you know, not millions, but just enough to get us going and then go from there. So.
Okay. So we do a pass-along question on the show. Last night we had dinner with Robbie Gordon, and his question actually coincidentally lined up with your Reddit Q&A.
Right.
It's not really a question, but he said if Jeremy Mayfield wanted to, he could come run the Stadium Super Trucks with us if he had the sponsorship. He'd be welcome in our series.
Right.
And then funny enough, I get on Reddit after that, and one of your things that you mentioned several times is, I'd like to run in that Stadium Super Truck series. I was like, well, dude, we need to make that deal happen.
Right. And I would love to do that, you know, and do something, you know. And but like I said, Robbie's been cool to me. Like I said, he and I were kind of in the same situation. You know, he really didn't. He came in on his own and kind of fought for what he believed in. You know, and we're obviously in the same situation right now that we're both in, but sort of. But I got a lot of respect for him, and I would run one of those trucks.
Oh yeah. So tonight we're having dinner with Shane Meal.
Yeah.
Former NASCAR driver, USAC driver. I don't know if you even know the guy.
Yeah, I know him.
Okay. If you could pass along a question to Shane Meal about anything at all, what would it be?
There's a lot of stuff I would ask him, but you know what I mean. He and I got some stuff in common. You know what I mean. But
just so you're aware, it's a coincidental thing on the schedule.
Oh, I know. Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool. Let's see. I guess what he's doing now. I don't even know what he's doing now. You know, hopefully he's doing okay. And I don't know what I'd ask him, but heck, I don't even know. That's a hard question. I maybe come back to that one.
Yeah, it's fine. So you were telling us earlier how you had the fastest jet in the paddock. And you're making $2.5 million from Penske. I honestly don't know. How are you living right now? In terms of like what's your house like? What kind of company? I saw your truck outside.
Yeah, well, I live in it's a old mobile home trailer right over here on the lake. And
I was like, I think he's. But
I think. I guess. So
we live. My wife and I live on. We still live on Lake Norman. We're on Lake Norman. Yeah, we're in a place over there on the lake, and we got some stuff that we're working on trying to. You know, do something, move to another place, some land again, you know, and it's got a shop and stuff on it, and hopefully.
And like all the back taxes and restitution and all that stuff is that
we're working on it. It's the restitution's paid. That's all my legal stuff's done.
Oh, good. Okay.
And the back taxes were just a kind of a damn. You know, when you do your when you go do your taxes, pay them quarterly. Like we were self-employed, kind of my own self deal. Or you pay your taxes based on what you made the year before.
Yep.
All right. Well, when that stops. And you're not making that money just immediately, and you still got a quarterly taxes you got to pay.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're like, well, how the hell am I going to pay these?
You know you went from making millions at Evernham to nothing.
Just, yeah, in 09, you know, just stop. And and then you got write-off stuff like airplanes, you got trailers and all that you've rolled off 5 years that hadn't been 5 years yet.
Yeah.
You know, so then when you start getting rid of all this stuff, you owe more on it than what you sold it for. You know what I mean?
Oh, because of depreciation.
Yeah,
and all that.
A lot of stuff. You know, and so that kind of got me in a bind with the IRS and all that. But I'm hopefully about say 120 days away from all that being.
Oh wow! Great. Okay.
Yeah, and all that was the fact of, you know, we went through a lot of stuff. I mean, just stuff that just hit one after another. You know, our farm and just IRS and just NASCAR and just all this stuff happened to us one time. You know, and we're real close to getting all that stuff, you know, totally cleared up behind us and ready to start over. It just took us a lot of years. I mean, it's taken a long time to get this to where we're at, but it don't seem like long. It seemed like yesterday. But when you got we had a lot of big that just went on, you know. 2.5 years of doing illegal trying to stay out of prison, you know what I mean? It's like, you know.
We don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
We're not.
Well,
awesome.
I can tell you this: when they say everybody's one bad decision away from falling off the damn cliff, that's what happened.
Right.
And when you fall and you think that who you think is going to catch you, they're going to watch you go by and go, man, sorry about that, dude.
Right.
While you're heading down the bottom, you know.
Yeah.
And then when you get in the bottom of the hole and you're trying to get out, and you climb up and you get your fingers on top of it, somebody walks by and accidentally steps on them, you go right back down in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one thing I can say is we've been from the top to the bottom. You know what I mean? And we're still here and still surviving and still laughing and, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff they can't take away from us, you know.
Coming from Hollywood, it's very common that you see an actor or a producer. I mean, we're seeing, especially right now in October, you know, very famous producers going through a lot of shit. It's very common for a lot of people to just sort of abandon the actor.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens.
Who's stuck with you?
Man, from the outside world, I'm not sure, you know, like really still today, but I know that when all this happened, everybody I knew pretty much, we had a lot of calls, people concerned, but to stick their neck out for you, you know, and they're still in that business, they couldn't, you know, and I understand that, you know, and, you know, you just don't look back, you know, but my wife's been there for sure.
I was going to say, Shana's
my wife,
been like,
when you say stuck with us, I'm thinking me and her, you know, because we've been together throughout all of it. And, and she's been just totally cool, you know, awesome. She lived it. She knows it. She's seen me.
You don't have a bigger champion in the world than your wife.
Right, I'm telling you.
She has got your
I know
back.
that. And you know, she's just been totally supportive. Her family, my family, you know, everybody that knows us, it's all been good. Yeah. You know, and the rest of the world, you know, I get about, I'd say 95% of the people that I see and visit and meet, you know, when they finally see you, you know, realize everything's cool. And you'll get one asshole across the street over there that looks over, is that Jeremy Mayfield? You know, shit like you're talking about. Yeah. You get one of those every once in a while, not very often.
Right.
You know, and in the internet, you get some on there because they're trying to play badass.
No consequence.
But the good thing about it is I don't care what they say. You can't really say anything any worse than that's already been done.
You've felt it. You've had it.
I've had it. I've already felt it. I've been doing it, and I never fail. I'm right back up. You know what I mean? And that's what we're both proud of. You know what I mean? Yeah. And people, I get people saying all the time, man, don't you wish you just went down the road to recovery? No. I mean, would you go road recovery?
But your thing is that you'd have to admit to do that. You have to admit that you've done something wrong.
If you don't mind me going, if you don't mind me going back, it's still not 100% clear to me. So, kind of the basis of the logic pattern is that Dr. Black kind of had a reason to make sure that everything came out positive the way that it did.
Well, we can't find any reason other than that, him and NASCAR, because there's only that.
But I guess my question is, I mean, yeah, you had moments where you spoke out against NASCAR, but there's like 30 guys that do that whenever they're pissed off at a decision. So why you?
Well, that's where it goes back to the and if y'all want to go in this part, it's a whole nother. It's a whole nother section of it, but I'll just make it short.
Yeah, it's your call. It's your call.
Yeah. All right. Everybody said, well, why would Brian France do that to you? Well, I don't know if y'all seen who one of my witnesses was for the my case that with NASCAR was Brian's ex-wife.
Okay.
All right, and if you ever know ex-wife, you can find out a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
That's why we'll never get married.
All right, he was in a big divorce with her. Yeah. And he'd already remarried and still fighting her with the divorce. I get a call one day, you know, out of the blue, right in the middle of all this, says Jeremy, this is so and so. I said, oh hey, how you doing? I knew who it was. I'd like to sit down and talk to you. Got something you might want to know. Okay, so
intriguing, yeah.
Oh yeah, so went over there, talked to her and her new boyfriend, or the guy was with her helping her, and he was a lawyer, he's an attorney, and I'll just go ahead and tell you, I don't give a shit if it's on or not. Everybody knows about it, but she said he made a comment to her that he didn't like. He classified drivers as laborers. He said, I'm not gonna have one of my drivers laborers. What do you call them? Mother. I'm just saying that one of my owners, you know, publicly on TV and all this stuff, and made that comment. All right, so we brought all this up. It's all court records. You can see it all in court. And so we brought all that up. Now we're showing why he would do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't know what I done pissed him off other than I did mother Ray a little bit. You know what I mean? But all right, so that was years before that. Right. So if I'm blackballed from the sport and I kind of knew it, I show back up my own race team. That's going.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then make the Daytona 500. One thing just kept winning, and then showing up with the wrong sponsor, didn't ask this, that, and the other. You know, that starts answering all of our questions for us. You know, that everybody has and mine. And so we made a big deal out of that, and that's when the judge just threw everything out. But I mean,
threw it out in the sense that he just said this whole thing is just not worth it, or what?
Yeah, I guess you know, just not because it wasn't worth it, because if you get attorneys that hang out with the judge and this, that, and the other. You know
when he threw it out in the summary judgment, what was the reason for throwing it out?
It's something stupid, like because I didn't sign that waiver was one of them. You know, that's the main thing. I signed a waiver and I couldn't sue NASCAR for no reason. It had nothing to do with the drug test.
Right.
You know, there was nothing they could run the drug test to show that I tested positive for that, other than their own results that they made up, and that they wouldn't even let us take the B sample. They said that that LabCorp can do the testing.
I'll leave it alone, I promise. But so the idea is that 3 years later, according to you, Brian Franson and Dr. Blacker somehow colluded in this process. Who called who first on the? So you disclose you're taking Adderall, and then it comes out with the Claritin D. You let the lab tech know in the drug test, or who called who?
To do what now? That
when you were disclosing that you had Adderall in the.
That was Dr. Black.
He called you, or you called him?
Yeah, he called me.
Okay.
Because I'd called him. That's what I was supposed to do. If I'm taking anything, call him.
Oh, you called him and let him know.
Yeah, and he called me back Sunday night. After I've already raced and everything.
Right. Right.
So, but yet I'm got 3 times the lethal limit of methamphetamines in my body, but I'm racing a NASCAR race. You see what I mean? None of it makes sense. None of it. The whole thing.
We're all kind of on the inside. You've dropped some names earlier, kind of half joking, but it's there have been other drivers who've been fabled to be doing stuff. Why would those guys not test positive?
Well, there's only been before me, it was only one other Cup driver. That was Tim Richmond. And when Tim Richmond got caught positive, I don't know if you read his deal. His lawsuit is almost word for word same as mine. You know what I mean? And they come out and the guy admitted he falsified his results. The lab tech did. Well,
but they say that could also have been to cover up, the HIV and things like that.
Yeah, but they didn't know he had HIV. They wanted him out of the sport. Everybody knew that. They did not want Tim Richmond because he spoke up. He was playing one. I know, but he looked totally different. He was doing things his way, and you can tell by the way the drivers are now. They don't want that. They don't want things their way. They want their way, not the way personality comes in. And so, that's the only thing I got. I don't know why any other reason other than I didn't kiss their ass and I wasn't a politician.
If Dr. Black had, let me put it this way, everybody. I am no expert on your analysis or drug test, but Adderall, Claritin D both have amphetamines in them.
Right.
But they say that they're low enough doses that they may come either. If at worst they'll produce a false positive, but a lot of times it's barely in there in your analysis. Had you not disclosed it, do you think it would have been caught?
No. If I hadn't told him, I wish I hadn't. That's one thing I wish I hadn't never done. If I'd never said a word, they had all week to scheme up. Hey, we got one. It's Mayfield. And they could scheme up all kinds of stuff.
Could you make the argument that you were maybe not so much a Brian France enemy as much as they wanted? They have this new policy. They have this new road to recovery.
Exactly a year later too.
Yeah.
It was one of the two. I think it was a combination of things that helped everything that they wanted to have done.
Do you think maybe the hope was that you could become kind of the poster child of the road to recovery?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And they thought because I owned my own team, I wasn't going to stand up to them, wasn't going to fight it. I had too much involved, which I don't look at things that way. You know what I mean? I can still sit here today and go home tonight and go to sleep. I ain't got to worry about I was a chicken like they are, and got scared and went. I'm not going to do that. And that's something I don't think that they knew. Some people know that about me, but a lot of people don't. You know what I mean? Robbie Gordon ain't going to, he ain't going to take too much shit.
We saw that. Yeah,
you know what I mean? And he's out too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I ain't going to take none, and I'm out. You know what I mean? Anybody that don't kiss their ass.
So, obviously, sort of being on what you'd call the blackball side,
outlaw, the renegade, I guess.
You can do it.
Sean Heckman is known as the renegade of Pro-Am Sports Car Racing PR.
Really?
Yeah. So from one renegade to another, we understand each other.
Right.
Fuck you, Ryan. And now we have to do a renegade photo. But because you're more willing to talk, is your buddy all right?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
You got my dog out there too.
Cool. Oh, by the way, if it's the same dog in the videos I saw, that dog's adorable.
Is it the red looking dog?
Little golden. Oh, he's cute. What you got a lot of shit on a lot of people, presumably. So, there's like we talked about, there's a lot of guys who are known for maybe being partiers, who not everything is out there in the public, whatnot. What are some of the lengths that journalists have gone to try and get shit out of you? On who else in the paddock is doing?
They haven't because they don't want to be the one to.
No one wants to do it
because if you expose it, then you used to be a journalist.
So you're saying we're in trouble?
Well,
we're not journalists. No, we don't work for NASCAR. We're not journalists.
I raced in the Institute. I raced, I should say.
Yeah, I would be careful talking to me.
Worth it. Worth it.
But no, as long as they don't really come after me because of it, because they don't really. I don't think everybody knows. Nobody's going to expose it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But you would definitely freely say there are guys who are partying right now.
I don't know about right now. I'd say they are. I know.
In your day.
My day for sure.
Right.
All right. I got nothing after that.
Okay.
So,
other
Hey,
favorite.
and y'all call me too if you want to do anything extra, anything.
Sure.
Like
Well, this is our last day in North Carolina.
Yeah, we're gonna have dinner with Shane Meal, and then we go down to.
Hey, tell him I said hey though.
We definitely will.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. Robbie said the same thing to both of you guys. He's like,
Okay.
"Oh man, I love those dudes."
Yep.
We're going down to Daytona tonight. Basically, we'll drive a little bit down there, and then we'll finish up tomorrow. And then we have Brian France tomorrow. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my
Kidding,
God.
kidding.
Hey,
And Jeremy's question
let
was.
me tell you this.
Yeah.
I talked to Shane. Was at a racetrack not too long ago, back last year, something like that.
Okay.
He was in his wheelchair. I know, he's racing or has a race team, whatever.
Right.
And he said, we was talking about everything. He laughed. He said, "You know what's crazy, man?" I said, "What?" He's good, but he's cool when you talk to him.
Yeah.
He's like pretty laid back. He said, "Man, there's only been like 4 people that got suspended, indefinitely from NASCAR, And he said, "Man, me and you the only 2 motherfuckers still alive." Out of the 4, he said, "Man, you the only 2 motherfuckers still alive." I said, "Well, I never thought about it like that."
All right. That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right.
So if you had a legacy that you wanted to leave with the listeners of Dinner with Racers, anything like what would you want people to say? Because I'm actually really curious to see how our listeners take to this episode, because they probably saw headlines and never clicked on it for the most part, because it's mostly a road racing base.
Right.
But we do have NASCAR listeners too. But I'm really curious to hear what they say about that, because most of our listeners are really like they listen. They're
pretty sharp,
You know what I mean?
Right,
They're really
right.
sharp. And I'm really curious to hear what their take is on you. But if you could leave something with the average listener that might not have ever heard your side of the story or even clicked past a headline, what would you say?
Man, probably really what I talk about a lot now is me and my wife is don't judge people. You know what I mean? Until you really know who they are, and that's probably one of the biggest things I like to say. Because a lot of people hear things from the media. You're seeing it every day on the news, and Trump couldn't be any more right than he is about the media. Everybody knows it. Nothing against you guys. Worry about
We're not.
I know.
We're not the media.
We're not the media. But you know what I'm talking
We're
about.
2 assholes eating food.
Like they can say whatever they want, make you out to whatever you want to be.
Yeah, right.
And my wife and I fought through all that.
Yeah.
And we survived it. And to know, on our side, we knew what was going on, and to see that on TV, going, what the hell, totally different.
Yeah.
180 off. So I just say, please don't judge anybody, until you hear the story and know what they've really been through, because just about everybody out here goes through something.
Sure.
And nobody out here is perfect, just don't judge till you understand what they went through,
Yeah.
So I guess that's good enough. Is that what
That's
you're
solid.
appreciate that?
That's
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah. All right. Should we get
All
the hell
right,
out of
yeah,
here?
so we've been here.
And I
several
appreciate
hours.
you guys. I really do. I think it's cool, and this is probably the funnest, coolest interview I've done. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Well, our big thing is like people are going to say, well, you had Jeremy Mayfield, you didn't ask him this, or you did ask him that, or whatever.
Right.
Why didn't you follow up with this? And literally our thing is like, we wanted to meet him.
Right.
This is for us.
Right, exactly.
And if people like listening to it, that's awesome.
Right, that's good. That's why you keep it. You keep it like that, and it'll be good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's good.
That's been a success so
That's
far.
good.
Awesome.
But if they do say, hey, man, why didn't you ask him this? Hey, call me up, man.
All right.
Just tell me when you're on there, and
Yeah,
I'll come right back to you,
Yeah.
man. Whatever we got to do. I'll answer any question they want.
All right. And with that, Continental's got the check.
I'm finished.
So that is Jeremy Mayfield telling his side of the story in a way that only Jeremy Mayfield can. And honestly, I liked hanging out with the guy. It was fun. So shout out to Jeremy and Shayna, who was very helpful in putting this all together. And hopefully he can get back on his feet. And there's hopefully some big things in the future for him. So moving on, we're going to listen to another group that submitted something to us. This is a band called FloTone. They are available on Spotify. Here's a song called Fool That I Am. Enjoy.